You lean forward across the table, your eyes locked on theirs, every muscle primed to catch the slightest tremor. The room is quiet, too quiet, as if the world beyond these walls has been muted. You feel a pulse in your temple, the beat matching the rapid flicker of your own eyelids. And then it happens, a sudden double blink. Not one, but a quick pair, like a stutter in their gaze. In that fraction of a second, everything shifts. Blinking is as natural as breathing, an automatic reset for our eyes. Most people blink at a steady, almost imperceptible rhythm, unaware of each flutter. But when the truth twists into a lie, the rhythm falters. Two blinks in rapid succession become a crack in the facade, a silent alarm, screaming that something is wrong. Do you notice it? Or does the moment slip by, buried beneath polite conversation and rehearsed smiles? That double blink is no mere accident. It's a physiological echo of inner turmoil, a reflex triggered by stress and cognitive overload. When someone spins a lie, their brain races to juggle reality and fabrication. Neural pathways spark confusion, and the body reacts. Like a warning siren buried in muscle memory, the double blink bursts forth, unbidden and unmistakable. Think of a suspect in an interrogation room. Under harsh lights and pointed questions, most will cling to their story with practiced calm. But their eyes betray them. Officers trained in microexpressions watch for that rapid flutter. There it is again, two blinks, a slip in the narrative. Suddenly, the suspect's confident posture cracks, and every other tell follows, a crooked smile, a shallow breath, a diverted gaze. In everyday life, it's less dramatic, but no less powerful. You're faced with a partner who insists everything is fine, yet their double blink betrays the cracks in their voice. A friend denies taking your idea, yet each denial comes with that tiny betrayal in their eyelids. You catch it without thinking. The world tilts for a moment, revealing the hidden engine beneath the polite words. Why does this matter so much? Because deception thrives on discomfort. Liars live in a constant state of cognitive tension, balancing what they know with what they invent. That tension demands release, and the body finds it in micro-movements, tiny twitches that betray the grandest deceptions. Eyes flicker, lips tighten, shoulders tense. But the double blink is the most honest fault line, the clearest sign that someone is scrambling to protect themselves. Of course, context matters. Not every rapid blink is a confession. Bright lights, dry air, even fatigue can trigger extra flickers. But when you learn to anchor your attention on that subtle cue, you gain an almost supernatural power. You become a truth detective, weaving together fragments of body language until a hidden story emerges. It's like learning to read a secret code written in flesh and bone. Practice this skill silently in crowds. Watch the barista handing out coffee, the driver at the red light, the colleague in the hallway. Notice the pattern of their blinks. Most will hold steady, then wait for the occasional pair, the quick stutter. Ask yourself, what thought just crossed their mind? What truth did they hide? Sometimes the answer is mundane, a surprise expense, a private worry, but the sensation of discovery is electric. When stakes are high, double blinks become more pronounced. Picture a boardroom pitch where a CEO smooths over a failed quarter with glossy optimism. Behind the polished veneer, every blink becomes a clue. 2 blinks, 3, a frantic burst as they dance around the harsh numbers. You could almost feel the lie hang in the air, heavy and irresistible, beckoning you to expose it. You might wonder if you're becoming paranoid, seeing deception in every flicker. But attunement to truth doesn't breed paranoia, it breeds clarity. You learn to distinguish genuine warmth from practiced charm, honest remorse from calculated regret. You start to trust your instincts, the same instincts that first noticed the double blink, and in that revelation lies your true power. By noticing 2 quick blinks, you reclaim agency in a world built on half-truths and hidden agendas. You refuse to be deceived, to be led by polished words alone. You demand authenticity, not just from others, but from yourself. Because if you can spot a lie in the flutter of an eyelid, you can also confront your own evasions, your own unspoken truths. So the next time you sit across from someone who seems too smooth, too rehearsed, let your gaze linger on their eyes. Wait for the quick pair of blinks. Let that subtle hesitation echo in your mind. In that moment, you pierce the veneer of performance and glimpse the raw, unfiltered reality beneath. The truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers between 2 blinks. You catch a glimpse of someone across the room whose grin seems perfect, lips curved just so, teeth bright, but something about the corners of their eyes is oddly still. The rest of their face radiates warmth, yet their gaze stays flat, distant, hollow. You feel a tingle of doubt, a niggle in the back of your mind. That smile feels off. Have you ever paused and wondered why some smiles fill you with genuine comfort, while others prick like splinters under your skin? It's not magic, it's anatomy. A real smile involves not just the muscles that lift your cheeks, but also those delicate fibers around your eyes. They contract, crinkling skin into tiny crow's feet, making the eyes sparkle with authenticity. This is known as a Duchen's smile. It's honesty on display. When someone lies, their lips might obey the script, but their eyes rarely do. You can fake the upward pull of the mouth, but you can't easily mimic the involuntary contraction of the orbicularis oculi. A smile without eyes is a mask. It hides intent. It creates an illusion of empathy, but your subconscious knows something deeper is wrong. You feel skeptical. That tension you can't explain. It's your body warning you that something is amiss. Picture a charismatic friend recounting an outrageous story as if it happened yesterday. They beam at you, teeth gleaming, but their eyes stay cool, detached, failing to join the celebration on their face. You nod along, laugh at the punchlines, but a small alarm rings in your gut. This inconsistency jars you. It's the subtle signal that the narrative might be shaped to serve a purpose, maybe to win favor, deflect blame, or elevate their own image. This isn't just idle observation. In intense police interrogations, seasoned detectives learn to look past rehearsed smiles. They study lines, wrinkles, tiny flickers. A perfect grin on the mouth, paired with still eyes, can tip them off to a planned deception. They don't need confessions, they need contradictions. And the eyes rarely lie. But why do we trust the eyes so deeply? Because they're windows, not just to the soul, but to genuine emotion. When you smile with your eyes, you reveal vulnerability. You lower the walls between you and another. The brain registers this as safe. Heart rate dips, blood pressure eases. You lean in, open to connection. Conversely, when you meet a knowing smile that never reaches the eyes, your body tenses. Your pupils dilate. Your palms grow clammy. You become alert. It's raw biological wiring. Your mind may accept the words. Your heart might even want to believe. But the eyes refuse to collaborate, sowing doubt. Consider those polished political speeches, delivered under glare of stage lights. The candidate flashes a brilliant smile, pausing at all the right moments, making the crowd cheer. Yet behind the camera, paparazzi catch glances that never crinkle the eyes. These behind-the-scenes images expose the difference between performance and sincerity. The smile for the cameras is engineered. The smile for the soul cannot be faked. This is the power of a smile without eyes. It's deception in its gentlest form. It whispers warmth, yet keeps you at arm's length. It persuades you to trust before planting seeds of doubt. A smile might be the world's most universal greeting, but without those tiny creases around the eyes, it becomes the world's most subtle lie. You might think you can overcome this instinct with logic. You tell yourself you won't be fooled. But logic follows words. Intuition follows the body. And the body reads the eyes first. The more someone fakes, the harder it becomes to sustain. Eventually, the mask cracks. A twitch, a delayed reaction, a slight misalignment. That's when you see it. A second too late, your trust is shaken. But awareness is your ally. Next time you encounter that too perfect smile, pause a moment. Look beyond the teeth and lips. Study the corners of the eyes. Watch for the sparkle. Watch for stillness. Notice the difference between mechanical charm and genuine warmth. Your attention to those tiny muscles gives you the power to see through the facade. Because in a world of polished lies and practiced presentations, a smile without eyes is fake. It's a signal flare in the dark, warning you that something beneath the surface doesn't align. Trusting what you see in the eyes might just save you from believing a lie that feels too good to be true. And if that realization stings, remember this: a genuine smile can't be faked. It doesn't just light up a face, it lights up a connection. It bridges gaps. It builds trust. A smile without eyes is empty theater. But a real smile, crinkling every fiber of your face, is chaos and beauty crashing together, raw and vulnerable. It's the truth you can't tame, and the truth you can always trust. Imagine you're listening to someone insist they did nothing wrong, and as each denial slides from their lips, they raise a hand to cover their mouth. You feel that catch in your chest, the moment where certainty shifts into doubt. You wonder, why hide the very tool you're using to convince me? What truth are they desperate to mute? Covering the mouth is an ancient, almost universal gesture. Long before language, our ancestors knew that silence could be safer than speech. A hand pressed against the lips served as both shield and signal. Protect yourself, nothing more must be said. When someone covers their mouth today, centuries of instinctual wiring still whisper in their nervous system, "You are guilty until proven innocent." This simple motion has power. The mouth is where thoughts become words, where intentions reveal themselves in the shape of a smile or the twitch of a lip. By obscuring that region, a liar attempts to intercept the truth before it escapes. It's as if they're scrambling to stop an unwanted confession, a confession they don't even realize they're on the brink of offering. You've probably seen it in interviews. A politician, cornered by a tough question, clutches a fist to their mouth mid-sentence. It feels like watching someone hold back a tidal wave. Their eyes may flash confidence, but their hand betrays them. Your brain registers the discrepancy instantly. Their words say one thing, their body insists on another. At a dinner table, too, you might notice a friend covering their lips as they recount last night's events. Their voice wavers ever so slightly, and you sense a tremor of something unspoken. Is it embarrassment over a harmless mistake, or guilt over a darker secret? The gesture forces you to lean in, heart pounding, as you search for the answer hidden behind that obscuring hand. Dig deeper, and you'll see layers of meaning. A quick brush of the fingertips across the lips can signal fleeting doubt. A sustained press of the palm suggests a more entrenched shame. The longer someone holds that pose, the heavier their burden of guilt. It's not a polished performance, it's a fissure in their facade. Psychologists call this a leakage cue, an unintentional flash of emotion, betraying inner turmoil. Covering the mouth is one of the most reliable leakage cues because it directly targets the epicenter of speech and expression. Hands, after all, are extensions of thought. When words fail or lie, the hands rush in, attempting to erase the mistake. But beware false positives. You've likely covered your own mouth in moments of shock, terror, or awe. Sudden news can prompt the same reflex. So context matters. If someone's hand appears when they're hiding delight or stifling laughter, that's different from the hand that clutches the mouth during a defensive denial. You learn to sense the nuance, tuning in to hesitations, shifts in posture, and the cadence of their breath. In high-stakes interrogations, detectives train to spot this cue. They know that a suspect's mouth-covering gesture often precedes evasive answers. In one famous corporate fraud case, an executive repeatedly muffled their lips while insisting the books were clean, only to be caught later when the missing funds surfaced. The hand-on-mouth moment became a flashpoint of guilt he could never erase. Yet, you don't need a badge to use this knowledge. In everyday life, it sharpens your intuition. Next time a friend tells you they never received your text, watch their hands. A sudden hand-to-mouth smack in that moment is more telling than any skillfully crafted alibi. You begin to see the unspoken pleas, the desperate attempts to silence that which betrays them. And here's the paradox: by trying to hide guilt, the liar reveals it more clearly than any confession could. The hand may block your view of the lips, but it can never fully stop the tremor in the arm, the flicker in the eyes, the subtle dip of the head. Each movement writes a story of conflict, the primal struggle between concealment and exposure. So the next time you catch that covering mouth gesture, pause. Don't jump to conclusions, but don't ignore it either. Let it guide your questions. Let it remind you that truth is never just in words. It lives in the spaces between them, in the gestures we hope go unnoticed, in the instincts we can't fully control. In those moments you hold the power to see beyond the lie, to call attention to the guilt hiding right beneath the hand. You step into the coffee shop and greet the barista you know well. Today something feels off. A faint undercurrent of hesitation lingers in their tone. Their body pulls back as they smile. Their torso tilts away from you ever so slightly, as if your presence is unwelcome. You feel a flicker of unease settle in your gut. That subtle retreat of their body is speaking louder than any words they offer. That retreat is known as leaning away. Emotion so tiny most people miss it entirely. Yet it reveals a raw, unfiltered reaction. Our bodies instinctively lean from danger or discomfort. When someone leans away, they push the world out of reach. They are signaling that something is wrong, even if their lips claim everything is fine. Leaning away is the language of instinct, unedited and undeniable. This instinct runs beneath our conscious mind. Long before we form sentences or filter our expressions, our brain triggers primitive defense. It checks the space around us for safety. When that system senses a threat, be it physical, emotional, or moral, it nudges our posture to create distance. Leaning away is not a choice. It is a reflex, a silent alarm bell that cannot be fully controlled by sheer will. Imagine talking with a close friend about a painful memory. They hear you recount the betrayal, their shoulders stiffen and then slide backward, as though gravity has shifted under them. Their face may remain compassionate, nodding in sympathy, but their body has betrayed an urge to escape the emotional storm. That is the power of leaning away. It betrays the split between mind and body, revealing truths even when our words hide them. In the realm of deception, leaning away becomes a powerful signal. A liar may cradle a story in a comforting tone, pepper it with half-truths and confident eye contact. but when they lean from you, they distance themselves from their own lie. It is as if their body recoils from the words they spin, refusing to be complicit in the deceit. That lean away is the body's confession, whispered in posture rather than speech. Why does this happen? Because even the most practiced liar cannot fully override the primitive alarm system. They might steel their gaze, smooth their voice, and sculpt their face into the mask of truth, but their nervous system is wired to reject scenarios that conflict with reality. Leaning away is the body's way of saying, I do not believe this. I do not accept this. I want no part of it. But leaning away alone is not the whole story. It must be read in context, never in isolation, never as a lone witness. A person seated on a narrow bench might lean away simply because the space is tight, or a sudden noise might prompt a startle reflex. Yet when pairing leaning away with other signs, a forced smile, microfacial tension, irregular speech patterns, you begin to see the outlines of deception or deeper unease, patterns that no single motion could reveal on its own. In a negotiation, a skilled observer watches for that quiet shift. When a counterpart leans away as you discuss price or terms, they are signaling resistance, an invisible barrier guarding their inner truth. They may nod in agreement, but their body reveals doubt, like a silent gasp you barely hear. That doubt is the chink in the armor, the opening you can use to probe deeper, to uncover the real barrier that numbers and contracts fail to expose. Lean away is more than a safety reflex, it is a mirror to the soul's unrest. It speaks of hidden fears, unsaid regrets, and unspoken truths. It reminds us that beneath every polished conversation lies a primal system of self-protection, ancient and unyielding. And because it operates beneath our conscious mind, we cannot simply will ourselves not to lean away when the mind cries foul. When you learn to spot leaning away, you step into a new dimension of perception. You discover how seemingly benign conversations are laced with unspoken truths. You grasp that beneath the mask of words and the polish of speech lies a primal system guarding your sense of safety. Leaning away is its most eloquent statement. Let the repetitions sink in. Discomfort drives retreat. Retreat reveals discomfort. Discomfort, when concealed, fuels lies. And lies, in turn, leave traces in the body. They push you away from the truth, and your body mirrors that impulse. Leaning away is the echo of that silent battle between authenticity and illusion. So the next time someone leans away from you ever so slightly, do not ignore it. Pause, observe. Ask yourself what unseen force is prompting distance. In that tiny tilt lies the opening to understanding. Leaning away reveals discomfort. Discomfort exposes deception. Deception dissolves under scrutiny. In that moment of awareness, you hold the power. You can choose to press deeper or to pull back with compassion. You can shine light on the hidden fissures beneath a polished facade. And in that space, truth emerges, pure and unavoidable, like the gravity that keeps us grounded even as we lean away from the lies. Picture a dying ember of dusk settling on an empty living room. A friend sits across from you. Their face is calm, eyes glossy. They speak of a loss. Pause, then your attention catches on the transformation. Their mouth twitches downward, the frown unfolding like a slow shutter. And even after their story ends, the frown stays. Have you noticed how sadness flickers, then fades like a candle guttering in a draught? Authentic sorrow emerges, soft and fleeting, but a frown meant to convince. It clings. It lingers heavy and hostile on the face, refusing to vanish with the true emotion. Imagine watching someone explain a betrayal. They sigh, voice breaking, shoulders heavy. Their words carry pain. Yet their frown holds long after the tremor in their voice subsides. It outlasts genuine grief, betraying a tension that has nothing to do with sadness. Why does the frown outlive the feeling? Because a lie demands effort. When you feign sadness, your muscles tense consciously, your eyebrows draw in, lips press down. But once the performance is over, those muscles struggle to relax. The brain, busy managing the deception, forgets to release the physical act. Think of it as a secret mark. Genuine emotions are raw and unpredictable. They flare and fade, leaving fleeting traces. Deception, on the other hand, is manufactured. It follows a script that doesn't end with the emotion. It loops back on itself, creating a continued imprint on the face. Scientists call this the corrugator reflex, those muscles that knit your brow. Genuine sorrow fires both orbicularis around the eyes and corrugator between the brows. A liar can mimic the lower part, but the telltale eye wrinkles never appear, leaving a frown that feels incomplete. Your brain expects the frown to relax when its job is done. But in deception, the mental script lacks an exit cue. The muscles remain in suspense, held by the weight of the lie. The result is a frown that overstays its welcome. Picture a theatrical mask pressed against your face. The actor's expression frozen, contorted in emotion. Mask meets skin, but skin resists. That resistance is the truth, clawing its way back. A liar's frown is that mask, unyielding and unnatural, too perfect to be real. Evolution carved the frown as a shield, furrowed brow to ward off threats, narrow vision to focus on danger. When a liar unleashes that same shield, it feels out of place, a primitive alarm raised without true peril. That dissonance betrays their intent. Combine the lingering frown with fleeting microexpressions, a quick flash of surprise or contempt before the frown settles. That split-second reveal is the final nail in the deception coffin. It's the crack in the facade that your eyes can notice. Summary: a true emotion is ephemeral. A lie is etched, the genuine stings and softens. The fake endures and hardens. It's in that endurance that the greatest truth lies. Even in casual conversations, this whisper of deception can surface. When someone feigns disappointment in a simple apology or pretends regret after a minor slight, observe their brow. If it hovers, hesitant to soften, you're witnessing a flash of inauthenticity, an echo of a lie rather than a trace of feeling. You might recall a moment you lied to protect someone's feelings, said you were fine when you were anything but. Afterwards, did you catch yourself tugging at your brow, rubbing your jaw? That lingering tension is your body refusing to simply drop the act. Now, take it to the extreme. Picture a con artist weaving a tale of tragedy. They speak with such conviction you lean in, heart racing. But watch their face afterwards. That frown remains. It clings like an unwelcome guest, a residue of false emotion that begs to be seen. What do you do when you spot it? Do you confront the speaker, point out their lingering frown? Not yet. Instead, you lean back and watch. You wait for other signs, the rapid blink, the throat clearing, the gaze flickering away. The frown is your first clue, your beacon in a sea of deception. But how do you train your eye to catch it? Start with reflection. Next time you feel genuine sorrow, let yourself frown, then watch how quickly it dissolves. Notice how the weight lifts when you stop thinking about it. Feel how your muscles relax, letting a neutral expression return. Then practice on actors. Watch interviews where emotions are real. Study the difference between a grieving child and someone performing grief. A child's sadness flows through the eyes, migrates across the cheeks, then vanishes. A performer's sadness is anchored in the brow, stubbornly fixed. What about you? When you lie, do you feel your own frown cling? Do you sense the echo of your deception? In the subtle tug of muscles, with awareness comes power. You start to notice how your own body reacts, revealing your hidden truths before your words. Layer on another complexity, cultural differences. In some societies, open displays of sadness are discouraged. Liars adapt, learning to mask their emotions, but the frown deep in our primal system will still betray the effort. It's a universal tell, silent yet deafening, if you learn to listen. Now breathe. Feel the subtle tension around your own eyebrows, let it go, notice how the weight disappears. Embrace the relief of genuine neutrality. This is what honesty feels like, a moment of stillness, unguarded and uncontrived. And remember, liars fear that moment. They dread the ease with which the truth slips in. They dread the absence of effort. That's why they cling to the frown. They hold on, hoping no one notices the struggle behind the facade. As you move through conversations, keep an eye on the brows. Look for the ones that won't let go. Pause when you see a frown stretch beyond its welcome. Ask questions, watch for shifts in tone, meet the gaze that flickers and returns. Trust your instincts. Frowning lingers longer than sadness because lying is work. It requires rehearsal, memory, and constant mental upkeep. Muscles tire but remain contracted, a silent alarm that something is amiss. Your face remembers what your mind tries to hide. So the next time someone shows you their sorrow, pay attention to the afterimage. Watch the frown that lingers when the tears have dried. Let that tell you everything their words refuse to. Let it guide you to the truth hidden beneath the surface. Because in the end, a liar's greatest betrayal isn't in their words. It's in the silent persistence of a simple frown. And once you learn to see it, you'll never be fooled again. You lean forward, listening to every nuance of her reply. The words themselves seem plausible, but there's a tiny hitch in her voice, an imperceptible climb in pitch that flickers like a warning light beneath the surface. You catch it, don't you? That subtle rise, that hitch, that crack. It feels like truth slipping away. When you lie, your body betrays you. Your heart races, adrenaline surges, and your vocal cords tighten in response to the sudden jolt of fear. The tension makes your voice climb higher, just as a rubber band stretches and squeaks when you pull it taut. It's not conscious. It's instinct. Have you ever asked someone a simple question, did you take it, and felt the answer hover just above their normal register? Their words drift upward, as if trying to escape the weight of the lie. You sense it before you even pass the meaning. That's your intuition decoding physiology. The mechanics are simple. Your vocal folds, those tiny muscles in your throat, vibrate faster when they're under stress. The faster vibrations equal higher pitch. When you're calm, your voice is grounded, deep, steady. When you lie, stress hooks in, and your pitch leaks upward, exposing your deceit one octave at a time. This isn't just anecdotal. Across cultures, across languages, liars exhibit this pitch rise. It's woven into our biology. Every time we deceive, our nervous system flares, broadcasting an alarm through our voice. It's a universal signal that doesn't require translation. Why does it happen? Because lying is hard work. Your mind juggles two tasks, fabricating a story and ensuring it aligns with reality. That cognitive load triggers emotional arousal. Your mind floods with tiny alarms that tighten your throat, and your voice responds by climbing. Pitch becomes the shadow of your guilt. Think of a job candidate embellishing their resume. As they spin tales of leadership and innovation, you notice their voice draw upward on key words: initiative, vision, lead. It's almost imperceptible, but it's there. You feel it in your gut. You register it. That's your internal lie detector at work. Or imagine a suspect in an interrogation room, insisting innocence. Their tone leaps, word by word, the higher notes punctuating every denial. The interrogator leans in, watching the shift. That small jump in pitch speaks louder than any confession. Listen for the end of sentences. Liars often raise their pitch at the tail end of statements, as if they're asking permission to lie, rather than delivering it as fact. You know that nagging question tone. It's not a question. It's deception betrayed. A voice under strain is like an old violin playing out of tune. The strings tremble when the temperature changes. In the same way, stress in your mind makes your vocal cords quiver, and the result is a higher note than you intended. Your voice goes sharp when it's worn thin by lies. You can train yourself to hear it. Record conversations. Mark where the pitch spikes. Compare it to the baseline of honesty. Over time, you'll map the contours of truth and deception in the same voice. Your ear becomes a finely tuned instrument. Beyond pitch, listen for tremors, microprosody shifts, the tiny stutters that bloom when someone lies. Those micro-tremors ride on top of the pitch rise, like ripples on a pond. Together, they form a signature of deceit. You can learn to read. Notice how pitch rises, pitch betrays, pitch reveals. The repetition fixes it in your mind. It's not magic, it's biology. And it happens to everyone. Even the most practiced liar can't erase every tremor. Every raised note leaves a footprint. Of course, context matters. Public speakers might speak in a higher register to command attention. Fatigue can lower pitch. Baseline differences exist, but when you combine pitch analysis with eye contact, body posture, and microexpressions, the pattern becomes undeniable. Some liars try to control their pitch, forcing a monotone to avoid detection. But in the battle between conscious effort and subconscious reflex, reflex often wins. Tiny tremors sneak past the mind's guard, betraying the lie even when the pitch seems steady. When you lie about love or loyalty, your voice betrays an emotional weight. Those words carry the ache of dishonesty, and pitch rises under the pressure. You feel the crack in someone's tone when they deny caring. It's heartbreaking and revealing all at once. Pause for a moment. Think about your own voice as you speak a white lie. Feel it climb, that knot in your throat, that tremor in your tone. You're the liar, and you still can't fully tame the pitch rise. That tells you everything you need to know about this cue. On a deeper level, what does it say about truth when our voices betray us? That honesty isn't just moral, it's physiological. Truth slides through our bodies cleanly, without friction. Lies leave scars in our vocal cords that you can hear if you listen. Let your ear be the alarm bell. When you hear that subtle climb, that unexpected peak, trust it, lean in, question it. Every raised voice pitch is a flag planted on the lie's fault line. Use it. Your voice is your soul on display. When it climbs, it's screaming your guilt. When it steadies, it affirms your honesty. Listen carefully. In every conversation, pitch is the hidden language of truth. And every lie has its soundtrack. You step into a quiet room, and the silence feels electric, as if it's holding its breath. A single voice cuts through the stillness, uneven, jagged, trembling. It repeats words, drags out syllables, coughs up filler, sounds like, and as if each one is a life raft in a storm of thought. That trembling cadence isn't just awkward, it's a confession. It's nerves leaking out through the seams of speech, betraying the person who wants so badly to seem calm, collected, in control. Have you ever noticed how the simplest question can turn into a verbal minefield? You ask someone where they were last night, and instead of a smooth answer, you get jagged hesitations. I was, at home, they say, each pause loaded with tension. Those stutters feel like a warning light blinking on a dashboard. They're not random. They're the mind's alarm system, warning that deception is in play or that confidence is cracking under pressure. Speech is like a river flowing over rocks. Under calm conditions, the water glides effortlessly, every word arriving where it's meant to. But stir the current with anxiety, and the flow breaks against hidden stones. Words tumble over each other, the current shudders and stalls. Those stones are lies, half-truths, secrets the speaker is dragging behind them. Each and is a boulder, slowing the flow of honesty. Filler words alone don't prove someone is lying. They're part of everyday speech for all of us. But when those fillers surge, when repetition spikes, when I becomes I, you're witnessing the brain's struggle to juggle truth and fabrication. Lying demands extra mental effort. The real story must be buried, an alternate version built on the fly. That extra workload crowds cognitive space, and words start to stumble. Picture a friend confronted about a betrayal, caught in a lie about money or fidelity. Their sentences twist and knot as they scramble to keep their version intact. I paid you back, right? I sent it last week. I thought you got it. Notice the repeated pronouns, the frantic justifications, the way each syllable trembles as if afraid to be spoken out loud. That tremble is the heart's panic echoing in the mouth. Speech stutters reveal nerves because they're the fault lines between thought and action. When you tell the truth, your brain simply retrieves a memory and packages it for speech. When you lie, you must inhibit the memory, construct a fiction, monitor consistency, anticipate doubts, plan defenses, all in real time. It's like running a marathon while reciting a poem by heart. Sooner or later, one of those tasks falters and your tongue trips. There are different kinds of stutters: repetitions, prolongations, blocks, repetitions, loop a sound. He didn't call me. Prolongations, stretch it. He didn't call me. Blocks, stall it, where the mouth freezes as if refusing to cooperate. Each type signals a different level of resistance. Repetitions might mean you're fumbling for the next word. Prolongations show hesitation to commit. Blocks reveal pure panic, the brain slamming the brakes before an unwanted truth escapes. Remember that politician at the press conference, sweating under the spotlight, voice wobbling as tough questions rained down. Every dragged syllable was a tremor of fear. Their polished script cracked under scrutiny, and the audience felt it. That tremor spread through the room, infecting trust with doubt. You don't hear the lie, you hear the panic. Your own heart picks up on these tremors. When someone fumbles, you feel a sudden ping of alarm, a launching point for suspicion. It's why speech stutters can be more revealing than a confession. Lies speak softly through words, but nerves shout through the gaps between them. Yet stutters aren't infallible proof. Neurodiversity, social anxiety, caffeine jitters, there are honest reasons for a wavering voice. But when stutters spike in sync with evasive eye movements, protective gestures, or inconsistent details, the pattern becomes telling. It's the orchestra of anxiety performing a symphony of concealment. Next time you listen for truth, tune into the rhythm of speech. Notice not just what is said, but how it emerges. Listen for the scattered pebbles in the verbal river, the places where flow is broken. Those tremors, hesitations, tiny fissures in confidence are where deception seeps through. At its core, stuttering under pressure is a glimpse of the mind's battlefield. Every stutter is a soldier falling under the barrage of guilt and fear. You aren't just hearing words scramble, you're witnessing the struggle between honesty and artifice. And in that struggle, the truth finds its voice in the very tremor of the lie. Because, in the end, speech stutters don't just reveal nerves, they reveal vulnerability. They show that beneath every crafted story, there's a heartbeat quickening, a conscience reluctant to stay silent. They remind us that nobody lies without feeling the tremor of risk, the pulse of guilt, the weight of fear. And sometimes that tremor is louder than any words. Imagine you're seated across from someone whose words flow smoothly, whose voice trembles only slightly, yet you notice a single bead of moisture rolling down their temple. It's not hot in the room. The air is still, and yet there it is, evidence of something deeper, something they'd rather hide. Sweat without exertion is a betrayal written on skin. Have you ever caught that unexpected shimmer on a person's forehead when they're answering a loaded question? It's usually fleeting, a quick gloss above the eyebrows, a faint dampness along the hairline, easy to miss if you're not looking for it. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. You become hyper-aware of every glistening drop that threatens to expose the lie. Sweat glands don't lie. Unlike the steady perspiration that follows physical effort, emotional sweat erupts in moments of inner turmoil. It's the body's alarm system, screaming beneath the surface, activated by the same fear circuits you rely on to sense danger. When someone lies, they trigger those ancient pathways, flooding their skin with moisture, even though they're sitting perfectly still. Picture a job interview. The candidate sits upright, handshake firm, resume polished. Yet, when you ask about that gap in employment, their palms suddenly slick against the tabletop. Their collar sticks to their neck. They shift, trying to wipe imperceptibly at their brow. Even though their story is rehearsed, their body betrays them. That clammy grip, that flash of dampness, it screams uncertainty. Now imagine a date under soft lighting. Conversation flows, laughter rings out. But then you ask about past relationships. There's a pause, a drop forms at the corner of the upper lip. It's almost graceful, like a tear suspended before falling. You don't need the words, you just need that hint of moisture to know the story isn't as rosy as they'd have you believe. The science is simple. Emotional stress activates the sympathetic nervous system, sending signals to sweat glands all over the body. But the distribution is telling. Thermal sweat, from heat or exercise, covers large areas across the back, chest, arms. Stress sweat clusters in the palms, underarms, and forehead. When you see localized dampness while everything else remains dry, you've caught someone in the act of deception. Yet, even this isn't the whole story. Lying isn't just about fear, it's about cognitive load. Crafting a false narrative requires more mental effort than recounting the truth. Your brain heats up under the pressure of inventing details, monitoring your own performance, suppressing the urge to slip up. That extra mental horsepower generates metabolic heat, which your body must dispel. The result is sweat, proof of the strain beneath the calm exterior. Watch closely, and you'll notice the pattern. A liar will lean back slightly as they spin a tale, their head tilting away as if distancing themselves from the fabrications. At the same moment, the sweat surfaces. A tightening of the jaw, a flicker of the eyes, and then the first drop. The combination of postural shift and moisture reveals the lie more clearly than any word. But here's the twist. Not all sweat is a lie detector. You must consider context. Some people sweat easily, their pores overactive by nature. They may show moisture when they're simply nervous, not deceitful. That's why you look for clusters of cues, a handshake too firm, a throat clearing, eyes darting, paired with sweat appearing out of place. It's the convergence of signals that matters. Think of sweating without exertion as the body's equivalent of a confession whispered in drops. Each bead carries a fragment of truth you can't ignore. You might hear denial, see polished performances, but the sweat doesn't lie. It seeps out when the mind wrestles with deception, betraying the speaker faster than any stutter or slip. And when you learn to read this silent language, you gain an edge. You'll sense the moment of hesitation before the first drop appears. You'll feel the shift in atmosphere as the unconscious signals take over. You'll realize that sweat isn't just a bodily function, it's a spotlight on dishonesty. In the end, sweating without exertion is more than a curiosity. It's a window into the hidden tension of deceit. It's the body's own truth serum, refusing to be silenced. When you see that sheen where there should be none, you don't need further proof. You'll know without a doubt that the truth is slipping through their fingertips and dripping onto their skin. When you meet someone's gaze, you think you see honesty. But beneath the surface, a silent alarm is going off. You don't notice it right away, but their pupils begin to widen, like black moons expanding in a storm. It happens in an instant, before their lips form the next word. It's impossible to fake. An involuntary tremor of truth. Have you ever watched a friend's eyes when you ask a tough question? One moment they're steady, calm. The next, those dark centers stretch, as though trying to drink in every scrap of light. That's stress feeding the flood of adrenaline, forcing the iris to open wider, to prepare for fight or flight. It's their mind screaming, even if their voice whispers reassurance. At first glance, pupil dilation seems subtle, too subtle for conscious notice. Yet, in the seconds you scan their face, it's there, an invitation to look deeper. The liar sits across from you, confident in their practiced smile, but their pupils betray a different story. They're trying to keep control, to shape your belief, and in that effort, their body rebels. Think of a high-stakes poker game. Everyone's practiced their poker face, but only the pros watch the eyes. A flash of moisture, a split-second swell of the pupils, and the opponent knows something's wrong. The bluff is cracking under stress. And in that moment of widening black, the table shifts. You fold, you win. Pupils dilate under stress because your brain floods your system with norepinephrine. You anticipate danger. Being caught in a lie is a form of danger, and your body prepares to react. You can slow your breathing, plaster a calm mask, even force a steady voice. But your autonomic nervous system doesn't listen to lies. It obeys survival. This cue is more honest than any practiced gesture. A bent finger, a forced smile, even a trembling voice can be trained, controlled, rehearsed. But pupils, they're the final frontier. The last truth you can hide. In the interrogation room, detectives know to watch eyes. In the boardroom, sharp negotiators note the shift. Your own brain might try to rationalize. Maybe it's the dim light, maybe it's fatigue, but context matters. Picture yourself asking a loved one if they've been faithful. You expect closeness, trust, but as you speak, their pupils expand, and you feel a flicker of doubt. It's not guilt alone, it's fear of exposure, a primal urge to run or fight. That black bloom in their eyes is worth more than a confession. It screams, "I'm hiding something." And yet, you must be careful. Your own pupils dance to the tune of more than stress. Low light, high emotion, even attraction can trigger dilation. Watch a speaker you truly admire and your pupils widen with wonder. Listen to a secret that unsettles you and they grow with dread. But a repeated pattern, dilation timed to your questions, reveals a habit. A liar's eyes betray at every pressure point. You might think blinking more often betrays nerves. It does, but blinking can be faked, delayed, accelerated at will. You can control your blink rate with practice. Pupils, they don't answer to that command. Not even the most seasoned actor can will their pupils smaller or larger at will. They respond only to the chemistry in your bloodstream. Real-world example in televised interviews. When a politician is pressed on a scandal, camera analysts freeze-frame the close-ups. They measure the pupil size against baseline moments. The sudden surge when the question gets personal, that's the moment you know this person is hiding. The same happens when a spokesperson reads from prepared notes, calm eyes until the unexpected question arrives, then the pupils jerk wide and truth slips through. But you shouldn't stare. Dilation is subtle, fleeting. Instead, build a habit, notice baseline. How do their eyes look when you talk about harmless topics? Favorite hobbies, weekend plans. Notice again when you press on potential deception, financial secrets, personal failings, forbidden desires. A reliable liar's pupils will swell just when you need to watch. Imagine a sales negotiation. You ask about hidden fees. The sales rep smiles, but their pupils expand and you sense hesitation. You press further. They blink, look away, and the pupils contract again, as if hiding from the light. You hold your ground and ask for the fine print. You save yourself from a bad deal because their eyes refuse to lie. The power of pupil dilation lies in its honesty. It's an unfiltered reflection of inner turmoil. It cuts through rehearsed body language, false compliments, and well-crafted speeches. It's your built-in lie detector. Yet remember, no single cue is definitive. Always consider the whole picture. A throwaway question, a quick glance in flickering light, even genuine surprise can cause dilation. But consistent timing, stressful questions followed by pupil bloom, signals deception. So next time you suspect you're being lied to, don't look at the handshake, don't watch the lips. Let your attention drift into the eyes. Notice when those black moons expand. Watch for the involuntary signal that screams under the surface. Because in that moment, the liar's body betrays them and the truth is revealed. You're seated across from someone who insists they're telling the whole story. Their face is calm. Their voice is steady. But their eyes, they flicker, shifting as if chasing thoughts that vanish the moment you try to catch them. It's subtle. A quick dart upward or to the side. A momentary blur before their gaze settles. Too fast to be deliberate. Too telling to be ignored. Those fleeting flickers betray more than any word ever could. Have you ever felt the unsettling chill when someone's eyes refuse to meet yours? When the steady warmth of direct gaze fractures into 1,000 tiny hesitations? That's the sound of their mind running loops, fact clashing with fiction. At its root, it's about focus. Genuine attention anchors the gaze. When you recall a memory or describe an event you actually saw, your eyes lock onto one point. They remain steady. But when you manufacture details, your mind flickers between the truth you remember and the lie you're constructing. In that moment, their eyes flutter like a faulty projector. The film of reality skips frames. You see the interruption. You sense the gap in their story. And in that gap lies the lie. Think of lying as a performance. Every part of the body works to keep the illusion intact. The voice smooths over cracks. The posture stands firm. But the eyes are honest by nature. They respond to cognition, not intention. When the brain struggles to weave a convincing tale, the eyes betray the tension. The flicker isn't random. It's a neurological signpost. Micro-gestures in the ocular muscles reflect the struggle between memory and invention. It's a silent confession, lighter than a whisper, invisible until you know where to look. But spotting it takes practice. You have to slow down time. Watch not just where someone looks, but how long they look. Genuine recollection yields a smooth, sustained gaze. Fabrication yields a staccato of fleeting glimpses and unfocused drifts. Imagine interrogating a witness. You ask a direct question. What did you see? Their words flow, but their eyes flicker. They dart to the ceiling, down to the floor, sideways like they're scanning an empty room. That dance is the mind, searching for borrowed images rather than real ones. This is no accused criminal alone in a dark interrogation room. It happens at job interviews, at dinner tables, in tense negotiations. It happens when your lover denies something obvious or your friend promises they'll be on time. Any time truth bends, the eyes flicker. You might dismiss it as a nervous tech. But anxiety and deception share the same tug on attention. Excessive blinking or rapid glances can signal stress. But a flicker without focus, when the eyes move but land nowhere, is a deeper sign. It's a sign the story is written on shifting sands. Pay attention to where the eyes go. Up and to the left for memories, up and to the right for constructions. But it's not the direction alone, it's the vacancy of purpose. In genuine recall, that upward glance carries meaning. In deception, it's a smokescreen. Every time you see those flickering eyes, your body responds. Your pulse quickens. You lean forward, heart hammering. There's a primitive alarm in every flicker, like a predator sensing weakness. That physical reaction is your primal mind, screaming liar. That momentary gut instinct is the echo of thousands of years of social evolution. We learned to detect deception because survival depended on trusting each other. Feel the weight of their gaze or the lack of it. Trust resides in connection. When you look at someone and you see only fragments of focus, something vital is missing. A piece of authenticity, stripped away by their own unwillingness to confront the truth. Next time you suspect deceit, don't just listen with your ears, watch with your eyes. Look for the flicker. The moment their focus dissolves, your intuition flares. You know they're crafting, adapting, erasing. You know you're not hearing the full story, because in every lie, there's a battle for the eyes. The liar wants focus, the truth demands honesty. And when those forces collide, the eyes flicker without focus. They flicker, and in that echo of hesitation, you glimpse the fracture. You see the lie before it's spoken. You feel the tension behind their facade, and suddenly, you're no longer deceived. Here's the final truth. Lying blinds the eyes. Not permanently, but momentarily. In that moment, the gaze fractures, the mask slips, and reality peeks through. The next time you see eyes flicker without focus, don't look away. The truth has just revealed itself to you. You're in a conversation. The topic shifts. Suddenly, someone's posture changes. Their head tilts, just slightly. You barely register it, but your subconscious does, because that tiny, seemingly innocent movement might be telling you everything you need to know. It's one of those gestures we overlook, dismiss as trivial, but it's not. It's strategic. It's primal. It's a relic of animal behavior, refined by evolution and repurposed by human psychology to serve a new function, deflection. You see, when someone tilts their head, they appear more vulnerable, more approachable, like they're softening. It's a cue that says, I'm not a threat, and on the surface that can feel comforting. But here's the trap, because when someone's lying, they don't want to look powerful. They want to look harmless, honest, relatable. The head tilt becomes a shield. Now imagine you've just asked someone a difficult question. Their words say one thing, but their body doesn't match. They tilt their head, smile faintly, maybe even chuckle. That tilt subtly angles the eyes, the jawline, creating a non-verbal script that says, trust me. But it's not trust they're seeking. It's escape from scrutiny, from pressure, from truth. Lying isn't just about crafting false words. It's about navigating social tension, controlling perceptions, and managing emotional exposure. The head tilt is a form of management, a subconscious manipulation. It's like lowering a weapon while still hiding behind it. This isn't conscious most of the time. Liars aren't necessarily aware they're doing it. That's what makes it powerful. The head tilt is involuntary, a reflex wired deep into our evolutionary code. It's what prey animals do when they're unsure, when they want to signal submission or dodge confrontation. And when humans lie, they too revert to these primal tactics. But there's another layer to this. Think about when you were a child, caught in a lie. You didn't look straight into your parents' eyes and speak with unwavering confidence. You shifted. You looked away. Maybe you guessed it. You tilted your head. It's a displacement cue, a way of redirecting intensity, softening judgment, buying time. And we never really outgrow it. In adulthood, it becomes more refined, more socially acceptable. People use it during interviews, arguments, even therapy. I didn't mean to do that. Head tilt. I'm sorry if you were offended. Head tilt. It creates a smokescreen of sincerity while sidestepping accountability. The posture seems open, but the intent is evasive. Here's where it gets darker. Because some people, especially skilled manipulators, use the head tilt deliberately. They know it works. They understand how it disarms. They use it in the same way a magician uses misdirection. You're watching the head tilt, the soft eyes, the tilted smile, and not the actual content of their words. They don't just want to be believed. They want to be underestimated. And this is where most of us get fooled. Because we don't expect deception to look so gentle. We're trained to look for aggression, shifty eyes, sweating. We miss the subtle cues that whisper instead of shout. But that's the point. The most effective lies aren't delivered with malice. They're delivered with warmth, with charm, with a tilted head and a soft voice. That's what makes them believable. That's what makes them dangerous. So next time someone tilts their head mid-sentence, don't panic, don't accuse, just pay attention. Ask yourself, does the body match the story? Is the tilt an invitation or a deflection? Because sometimes the smallest tilt is the biggest red flag. And once you start noticing it, you can't unsee it. The illusion fractures, the spell breaks. You realize how much we rely on these subconscious movements to guide our judgments, and how often they lead us astray. The head tilt doesn't mean someone's lying, but when it appears at the wrong time, in the wrong context, paired with the wrong words, it becomes a clue. A crack in the mask. a signal that maybe, just maybe, the truth is being rewrote, and you're being asked to follow the wrong trail. You're sitting across from someone. Their words sound convincing, their story makes sense, but something feels off, something subtle, almost imperceptible. You can't quite place it, but your gut tightens anyway. Then you notice it. Their hands clasped together, tightly, like they're trying to stop themselves from unraveling. That's no accident. When someone is lying, their body betrays them before their words ever will. The mind might spin a story, but the body struggles to keep the lie contained, and the hands. They're often the first to crack under pressure. Clasped hands, especially when gripped tightly, aren't just a sign of nervousness. They're a subconscious attempt at self-restraint, a way to hold tension inside. It's the physical equivalent of biting your tongue, of trying not to give yourself away. The fingers intertwine, the knuckles turn white, and the liar hopes that if they can just hold still enough, the truth won't escape. Why hands? Because hands are storytellers. They punctuate our words, mirror our emotions, amplify what we say, even when we don't mean to. In normal conversation, hands move freely, expressively, naturally. But when someone lies, they become hyper-aware of their own body. They second-guess their gestures. They try to suppress their tells. And so, their hands shut down. But suppression creates pressure. Think about it. Lying triggers anxiety. It activates the sympathetic nervous system. Heart rate spikes. Muscles tense. The body prepares for conflict. And in that internal storm, the hands act like dams, trying to contain the surge of nervous energy. Clasping them tightly isn't comfort. It's control, desperate, frantic control. It gets more interesting. This gesture often appears right after a specific kind of lie, one that threatens the liar's identity. Not just a casual fib, but a lie that, if exposed, would unravel the image they've spent years building. A lie about who they are, what they've done, or what they stand for. In those moments, the hands aren't just clenched, they're locked in place, like they're holding on to the last shred of composure. And the intensity of the clasp can tell you even more. A gentle clasp might just mean nervousness, but a forceful bone-white grip, that's a sign of inner conflict, of someone at war with the truth. The tighter the clasp, the greater the tension between their words and their reality. They're not just lying to you, they're lying to themselves and trying not to break apart in the process. Of course, not every tight hand means deception. Context matters, but combine it with other cues. Lack of eye contact, inconsistent details, delayed answers, and the picture becomes clearer. The body starts telling a story, the mouth is trying to hide. And here's where it gets even darker. Sometimes people clasp their hands tightly because they're scared, not of being caught, but of what it means if they tell the truth. Maybe the lie protects someone. Maybe it protects themselves. Maybe the truth is too painful, too shameful, too dangerous. Not from you, but from what honesty might destroy. It's in these moments you realize that body language isn't just about reading others. It's about seeing the tension between reality and narrative, between who someone is and who they pretend to be. So next time you're talking to someone and their story seems polished, perfect, look at their hands. Are they relaxed, animated, or are they clinging to each other like they're afraid of what might slip through their fingers? Because hands don't lie, even when everything else does. You're talking to someone, they're smiling, nodding, their words say all the right things. But then, mid-sentence, their hand drifts upward just slightly to touch their face. Maybe it's a rub of the chin, a brush of the cheek, a finger skimming the lips. Harmless gestures, right? Involuntary, casual. But what if I told you that tiny movement speaks louder than their words? Touching the face is a silent scream of uncertainty. It's one of the most primitive, unconscious behaviors we exhibit when our inner world doesn't match the one we're trying to present. When someone lies, or even just withholds something, they experience an internal conflict. Their mind says, "Stay calm." But their body betrays the stress and the face. That's where the war shows up first. The skin on your face is rich with nerve endings, sensitive, responsive. It's why even the lightest touch registers so clearly. Now consider what happens when you feel exposed, anxious, or cornered. You instinctively seek comfort. Physical reassurance. That's where the face comes in. It's the closest, easiest place to self-soothe. A way to ground yourself when your internal compass starts to spin. This is why children cover their mouths when they lie. It's why nervous job candidates rub their foreheads. Why politicians subtly scratch their nose right after dodging a question. Their face becomes the battlefield where deception and discomfort meet. But it's not just lying. Touching the face often signals mental friction. Those moments when the brain isn't fully aligned with what's being said. You might see it when someone's trying to remember details, spinning a story too quickly, or second-guessing their own words. The more their fingers drift upward, the less certain they are about what they're saying, or how they'll be received. Of course, not every nose rub means someone's lying. That would be too easy. Sometimes it's habit, sometimes it's a stray itch. But here's the catch: when face touching clusters with other signs, averted eyes, delayed answers, sudden throat clears, over-explaining, that's when it morphs from meaningless tick to red flag. It becomes a pattern. And in human behavior, patterns are everything. What's even more unsettling is how contagious it is. You might find yourself touching your own face when someone else does, mirroring them, unconsciously syncing up. It's social camouflage, a way of adapting to someone else's anxiety without even realizing you're doing it. And just like that, you're pulled into their uncertainty. It also tells you something about power. People lower on the social hierarchy tend to touch their faces more in high-stakes settings. Think of the intern in a room full of executives. Their hand is constantly moving, nervous fidgeting, half-hidden gestures. Compare that to someone who's confident, dominant, in control. Their hands stay still. Their face remains untouched. Stillness, in this context, is power. Touching the face breaks that illusion. It reveals the cracks in the performance. It's also a survival relic. In stressful situations, the brain activates the sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response. That tension needs somewhere to go. The hand, wandering up to the face, becomes a valve, a pressure release. It's not conscious, it's adaptive, primitive, and that's why it's so revealing. Because liars can control their words, they can rehearse their tone, their narrative, their logic. But the body's honest. It leaks truth through tremors, pauses, and stray gestures, especially when the stakes are high. And that's what makes face touching so valuable. It slips through the cracks. It betrays the mental load of dishonesty, the fear of being exposed, the uncertainty of how their message will land. So the next time someone speaks to you, and their hand begins to rise, watch closely. Are they brushing away, sweat, or hiding a lie? Are they soothing their own anxiety, or signaling doubt they don't want you to see? Because the truth doesn't always come from the mouth. Sometimes it lingers in a single fingertip, grazing the cheek, brushing the lips, betraying everything their words are trying to conceal. He pauses. You don't notice it at first, just a beat, a blink, a breath too long before the next word escapes. But then it happens again and again. each pause growing just a little longer, just a bit more uncomfortable. It's like watching a video buffer on slow internet. You wait, you squint, you start to feel it in your chest, the tension building, the silence stretching. Something's off. That's the strange power of silence. When someone is lying, silence doesn't feel like calm. It feels like friction. Their words stumble, not because the truth is hard to say, but because the lie is harder to keep straight. They're searching, not for the right word, but for the right version of reality to invent next. Truth flows. Lies drag. Because when you're telling the truth, your mind doesn't need to build an alternate universe in real time. You're not constructing timelines, editing memories, scanning for inconsistencies. You're just remembering. But when you lie, especially about something that matters, your brain becomes a stage manager, frantically pulling strings behind the curtain, trying to make the scene look real, and that effort takes time. So the pauses stretch. What should be instant becomes hesitant. You ask a simple question, "Where were you last night?" And instead of a clean answer, you get silence. Not thoughtful silence, not reflective silence, but strained, stalling silence. The kind that tastes of panic just beneath the surface. You see, liars aren't just performing for you, they're performing for themselves. They're trying to believe the lie as they tell it, to make it feel natural in their own mouth. And that dissonance creates friction. Internal hesitation becomes external delay. The mouth opens, but the story's not ready yet. The brain is still rehearsing, and you can feel it. It's not just the length of the pause, but its shape. It's jagged, uneven, poorly timed. It doesn't sit comfortably between thoughts. It crashes into them. You feel it in your spine, that awkward twitch of your attention, the way your eyes narrow, almost involuntarily. Your body recognizes the discord before your mind does. Because humans are wired to sense rhythm. We notice when it breaks. This is where it gets dangerous. A skilled liar knows how to use silence too. They'll try to mimic the natural rhythm of truth. But there's always a tell, because even the best rehearsed lie carries tension, like a held breath, a clenched jaw, a subtle wince in the eyes. And the longer the silence, the more it demands an answer. The more it reveals the weight of the thing being hidden. Eventually, that pause becomes the loudest part of the conversation. And here's the trap. Once you notice it, you can't unsee it. Every beat too long starts to feel suspicious. You start counting the gaps, measuring the hesitation. And suddenly, the whole conversation shifts. Words lose meaning. Timing becomes everything. What you're really hearing is fear. Not fear of you, but fear of exposure. Fear that the mask will slip, that the silence will betray them, because it always does. The truth doesn't need time to think, but the lie needs space to breathe. And the moment you feel that breath, too slow, too shaky, too unsure, you already know. They're not just lying to you, they're trying not to choke on the lie themselves. You're sitting in a room with someone you barely know. The conversation is light, polite, and then they laugh. Not a small chuckle, not a subtle grin. No, they burst into loud, exaggerated laughter at something that wasn't remotely funny. The sound doesn't match the moment. It rings hollow, and for some reason it makes your skin crawl. Why? Because your brain just caught something it wasn't supposed to, something off. A glitch in the emotional signal that told you this laughter isn't real. It's performative, forced, and therefore a red flag. You see, real laughter has a signature. It's messy, uncontrolled. It hijacks the body. Your cheeks twitch, your stomach contracts, your eyes crinkle. There's timing to it, rhythm, an unmistakable chaos that reveals joy or surprise. But forced laughter, it's a copy, a conscious imitation of an unconscious act. And that's what makes it so easy to spot, because it tries too hard to be invisible. In psychology, this is called emotional leakage. When someone tries to display an emotion they're not genuinely feeling, their body betrays them. The timing is a little too late. The muscles around the eyes don't join the smile. The pitch of the laugh is just slightly off. And humans, whether we know it or not, are masters at picking up these inconsistencies. Especially when it comes to laughter. Laughter is deeply social. It's a form of bonding, of shared understanding. You laugh with friends, family, lovers, because something genuinely connects you. But when someone forces a laugh, what they're really doing is signaling something else. Compliance, obedience, deception. Think about it. Why does someone fake a laugh in the first place? To fit in, to ease tension, to appear like they agree, even when they don't. And that makes it one of the clearest indicators of psychological dissonance. The person is trying to mask their real reaction with something more socially acceptable, and in that moment, they expose themselves. A liar doesn't want to be found out, so they overcorrect. They give you what you expect, a little too perfectly. They laugh when they're supposed to, nod when it's polite, smile when you smile. But it's all mimicry, not emotion, but calculation. And ironically, this calculation makes them stand out even more. Your subconscious is constantly tracking these signals. Microexpressions, vocal patterns, eye movement. But forced laughter lights up like a flare in the dark because it's emotionally loud without emotional weight. It's hollow noise, and your brain knows it doesn't belong. Even worse, it creates a ripple effect. You hear fake laughter, and your trust dips, even if you can't explain why. The conversation feels less honest. The person feels less safe. You start questioning their motives, their sincerity. Because deep down, you understand if they're faking laughter. What else are they faking? This becomes especially crucial when trying to detect lies. Because when someone lies, they often compensate. They add emotional frosting to disguise the absence of truth. They smile too long, nod too much, laugh at jokes that aren't funny, not because they enjoy them, but because they're trying to manage your perception. And this act of managing is exhausting. It doesn't come naturally. So eventually, the cracks begin to show. The laughter sounds strained. The timing slips. The eyes go cold. And suddenly, the mask falls. The most dangerous lies aren't told with words. They're whispered through mismatched emotions, through a laugh that doesn't touch the eyes, through a smile that vanishes too fast, through a moment of joy that feels off. And now you know why. Because your brain isn't just listening, it's watching, measuring, comparing the sound of laughter with the shape of the face, the movement of the eyes, the posture of the shoulders. And when they don't match, it rings the alarm. So the next time someone laughs a little too hard, a little too loud, at something that doesn't deserve it, pay attention. Because that laughter might not be joy. It might be fear, or guilt, or manipulation. And that sound, that fake laughter, could be the clearest sign they're lying. Not just to you, but maybe even to themselves. You're sitting across from someone. They're smiling, nodding, saying all the right things. Their words are smooth, their tone is friendly. But something feels off. You can't quite explain it. There's just a strange tension in the air, like your gut is whispering a warning your mind can't yet decode. So you watch them more closely. Not their face, not their hands, but their feet. Because the truth, raw and unsettling, is that the body can't lie as easily as the mouth can. Liars rehearse their words, they script their tone, control their facial expressions, even modulate their breathing. But the feet, The feet don't get the memo. They remain honest, primitive, untrained. And when someone is lying, their feet often betray them. You'll see them subtly angle away from you, pointing toward the door, toward a hallway, even toward nothing in particular. It's as if, deep down, their body is already trying to flee. Their mouth may say, "I'm happy to be here," but their feet scream, "I want to leave." This isn't just speculation, it's ancient psychology. In high-stakes situations, your brain splits into layers. The conscious mind crafts words, rationales, stories, but the unconscious mind, the animal beneath, responds with instinct. And when instinct senses danger, it orients the body toward escape. Fight or flight doesn't begin with a punch or a sprint. It begins with a turn. Feet pointing away isn't just rude posture, it's survival programming. It's centuries of evolution whispering, "I don't trust this space." And liars, whether they know it or not, often feel unsafe, not physically, but psychologically. Because lying, no matter how practiced, carries the weight of potential exposure. And exposure means danger. Now picture this. Someone denies wrongdoing, insists they're innocent, laughs off suspicion, but their feet are halfway out the metaphorical door. What does that say about their truth or their comfort with the story they're spinning? What's disturbing isn't just the dishonesty, it's how unconsciously the lie is told. The liar might not even be aware their body is screaming a different story. They might believe their own deception, trust in their own performance, but their nervous system knows, and the body reacts before the brain can intervene. This gives you a kind of X-ray vision. While others listen to words, you start watching the quiet rebellion of the body, not just the tapping foot or the bouncing knee, but the angle, the orientation, the direction of escape. That's where the truth leaks out. But here's the deeper twist. This cue doesn't just reveal liars, it reveals fear, insecurity, discomfort. If someone's feet point away from you in a conversation, it might mean they're hiding something, but it could also mean they're afraid, anxious, disengaged. Not every foot shift is deception, but every one of them is a message. And the more you pay attention, the more messages you see. That job interviewer who smiled through your answers but had their feet pointed toward the hallway. They'd already made up their mind. The friend who said they had time to talk, but their feet edged toward the exit. They were halfway gone. The partner who promised everything was fine, yet kept their feet angled away from you during that conversation. You felt it, you just didn't know what to call it. Now you do. The feet are the body's compass. They don't lie, they just point. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. You'll notice the angles, the shifts, the way people physically orient themselves toward what they truly care about, and away from what they fear, resent, or regret. You'll start asking better questions. Not just, what are they saying, but what is their body begging to do? Because in the silence between words, in the subtle geometry of posture, a second story is always being told. And sometimes that second story is the one you should believe. Your eye catches the tiniest movement, barely perceptible, like a whisper passing through muscle, a subtle twitch in someone's finger. Not a gesture, not a signal, just a tremble. Harmless, right? But what if I told you that this small, almost invisible motion is a crack in the mask, a leak in a dam, holding back an ocean of anxiety? Your brain, even without conscious awareness, picks it up. That twitch doesn't belong. It doesn't match the rest of their body language. Their voice might be calm, their smile might seem sincere, but the finger gives them away. That's because the body doesn't lie as easily as the mouth does. When someone lies, their nervous system doesn't get the memo right away. It goes into alert mode. Their heart rate changes. Their muscles tighten. And often before the face can betray anything, before the voice wavers, the fingers twitch. Slightly, randomly, but consistently. It's the nervous system trying to recalibrate in real time, trying to suppress panic while the lie unfolds. And the fingers. They're the perfect outlet for unconscious release. The hands are always doing something, fidgeting, adjusting, scratching, tapping. But when those actions feel unprovoked, when they erupt in moments that don't call for them, they're almost always camouflage for internal distress. Think of it like static on a radio. You're listening to someone explain where they were last night, and suddenly a brief twitch of the pinky. It doesn't seem important, but that static, that twitch, that's the interference of anxiety on the broadcast of their lie. It's not just guilt, it's fear. The fear of being caught, the fear of consequences, the fear of losing control of the narrative. And that fear needs somewhere to go. So it goes to the fingers. Now, imagine this happening during a high-stakes interview, or a heated argument, or a courtroom testimony. The person speaks fluently, makes eye contact, smiles in the right places, but every time they insist they don't remember, the fingers betray them. Why? Because anxiety is physiological before it's psychological. It starts in the body, not the brain. That twitch isn't random. It's your body's last honest whisper before the rest of you commits to the lie. And here's the disturbing part. Most liars don't even know they're doing it. They don't feel the twitch. They don't notice the movement. But you can. If you know where to look, your conscious mind might overlook it. But your unconscious doesn't. That's why you sometimes feel that eerie sensation that something is off with someone. You can't articulate why, you just feel it. The twitch registered somewhere deep in your primal recognition systems. It told you something here doesn't match. Something here isn't safe. Now here's where it gets darker. Chronic liars, the truly practiced ones, they learn to control their faces, their tone, even their posture. But the fingers, they're still the weakest link. And when trained interrogators spot those inconsistencies, they don't confront right away. They wait. Let the anxiety build. Let the liar sweat through the twitching fingertips until the story cracks on its own. Because the fingers don't lie. They can't. They weren't designed to carry the burden of deception. They're designed for action, not fiction. And that's what makes them vulnerable. Honest, exposed. So next time you're face to face with someone who insists they're telling the truth, watch their hands, not their eyes, not their mouth, their hands. Look for the tremble, the flutter, the sudden scratch that doesn't belong. And ask yourself, is this movement part of the story, or is it the ghost of anxiety slipping through the cracks? Because even the best liar has one tell they can't control. The moment when the body tries to speak louder than the lie. You're face to face with them. Your friend, your partner, your child. You've just asked a question you already suspect the answer to. But something's off. Their eyes don't quite meet yours. Their voice trembles. Just a little. Just enough. And in that tiny quiver, something breaks. It's not the words they say that matter, it's how they say them. Because denial, true denial, doesn't come out clean and confident. It comes jagged, like something fighting to hold its shape under pressure. Their voice shakes not from fear of you, but from fear of themselves, of what telling the truth would mean. See, the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. When someone lies, especially when they lie to protect an image of themselves, they're not just deceiving you, they're waging war inside. One part wants to come clean. The other clings desperately to control. And the voice. It sits right in the middle of that battlefield. A quivering voice is a siren song of psychological tension. Muscles constrict, breathing shortens, the larynx tightens involuntarily. What you hear isn't just speech, it's panic, containment, the sound of internal collapse disguised as conversation. It's the vocal cords bearing the weight of something unspoken. Denial is rarely calm. It's brittle, and the closer the lie cuts to a person's identity, the shakier the performance becomes. They're not just denying an event or a fact, they're denying a version of reality that threatens who they think they are. And that's what makes the voice crack. Not because they're lying to you, but because they're still trying to lie to themselves. This is why the most revealing body language cue isn't always eye contact or fidgeting. It's voice instability. Because the mouth can rehearse, the eyes can be trained, but the voice, especially when pushed into denial, betrays what the body feels, not what the mind wants to portray. And here's the terrifying part. We often recognize this, even if we don't know how. We feel it in our gut. That discomfort when someone insists, "I didn't do it," but their voice falters. It's primal, evolutionary. Our bodies are wired to detect truth, not through logic, but through pattern recognition, tiny cues that something doesn't fit. And a trembling voice screams, "Something is off." But what if the person doesn't even know they're lying? That's where things get darker, because denial isn't always deliberate. Sometimes the lie becomes so deeply woven into their self-image, their mind refuses to let it go. They believe their own falsehood because the alternative would destroy them. So when they speak, their voice quivers, not from guilt, but from subconscious fracture. They're breaking without even knowing it. This is what makes denial so dangerous. It's not just deception, it's self-preservation. A refusal to look into the mirror and see what might be hiding there. And when you confront them, you're not just asking for the truth. You're threatening their entire psychological equilibrium. So they deny, and the voice shakes. And here's the twist. You've done it too. You've heard your own voice tremble when someone asked you something you weren't ready to answer honestly. Maybe it was a small lie. Maybe it was something much bigger. But in that moment you felt it, the tremor, the tightening, the edge in your tone. A piece of you wanted to tell the truth. Another piece couldn't bear the consequences. That quiver in your voice wasn't weakness, it was a signal. A quiet plea, your own subconscious whispering, "You're not okay with this." And the more you ignore it, the louder it gets. Because denial isn't silence. It's noise, the wrong kind. Uneven, inconsistent, trembling noise that cuts through the performance and exposes the conflict beneath. So the next time you hear someone deny something, listen carefully, not just to what they say, but how their voice carries it. Is it steady, or is it shaking? Because in that shake, that tremor, that fleeting loss of control, the truth is trying to escape. He doesn't blink, he doesn't stammer, but his chin rises ever so slightly when you ask the question. It's not arrogance, it's not defiance, it's a shield. This small upward tilt, so subtle you might miss it, serves a very specific purpose. It creates distance. A psychological barrier. When the chin lifts, the eyes look down the nose. The body stretches upward, away. It's the body's quiet signal that says, "I won't let you in." You ask him again, maybe something simple. "Where were you last night?" Or "Did you say that about me?" And again, there's that barely noticeable rise. That chin ascent is doing something very old, very primal. It's the non-verbal version of looking over a wall rather than through a window. Why? Because liars need emotional distance, not from the question itself, but from the person asking. When you lie, you need space to preserve your version of reality. Truth is intimate, vulnerable. It requires eye-level honesty. But lying is an act of separation, and the chin lift. It's the body trying to float above consequence. But here's where it gets darker. That upward tilt doesn't just protect, it projects. It subtly implies superiority, as if the person being questioned sees themselves as above suspicion, above you. It's an unspoken challenge. How dare you question me? The body becomes a battleground between vulnerability and performance. And in that tension, the chin rises, not out of confidence, but necessity. Because lying takes effort, cognitive load increases. The brain strains to manage the lie, remember the truth, anticipate suspicion, control facial expressions, tone of voice, posture, all at once. And while the liar might have trained their voice or smile, the body still leaks. The chin lift isn't always intentional. It's leakage, micro-defiance, a physical escape hatch from psychological pressure. This isn't always conscious. In fact, the best liars are masters of self-deception. Their bodies betray them long before their words do. The chin becomes a traitor, a trembling antenna revealing discomfort, guilt, fear, or worse, contempt. And don't be fooled, this gesture isn't limited to obvious lies. Sometimes the person truly believes the lie. They've rehearsed it so often, it feels real, but the body remembers. Somewhere deep in the subconscious, the conflict still simmers, the chin rises. Not to deceive, but to protect the fragile illusion. It's important to note that not every chin lift is a lie. Context is everything. But when it appears precisely at the moment, a question demands truth, especially a truth with stakes. It's a signal, it's a tell. The body is trying to create a vantage point, to look down on the confrontation, to minimize it. But in doing so, it maximizes suspicion. Now think of the moments you've seen this yourself. In arguments, interrogations, even small domestic disputes. That moment when someone's neck tightens, head tilts, chin rises, and you felt it, that drop in your gut. That subtle realization that something wasn't right. You might not have known why, but your instincts picked it up. The human brain is ancient. Long before language, we relied on micro-movements, postures, and facial shifts to assess threat, deception, and intent. The chin lift, it's a relic of that pre-verbal code, and your brain still speaks it fluently. So the next time you see someone raise their chin, not dramatically, not with a flourish, but subtly, reflexively, pay attention. Especially if they do it while answering a question. Especially if the question matters. Because in that fleeting gesture, you may see something they're not ready to say. The truth often hides in the tilt. And the body, no matter how practiced the liar, rarely lies for long. He tells you he's telling the truth. His voice is steady, his eyes don't flinch. Everything he says sounds rehearsed, but believable. And then you notice something subtle, almost invisible. His palms are hidden, not clenched. Not gesturing, just missing from view. It's such a small detail, so minor, it seems absurd to focus on. But your brain picks it up anyway. A faint unease creeps in. Why aren't his hands visible? What's he hiding? Literally or psychologically. See, the human brain evolved to trust what it can see, especially when it comes to the body. Palms, in particular, are ancient social signals. Open palms signify honesty, surrender, transparency. From primitive exchanges to courtroom testimonies, an open hand is a quiet but primal declaration. I have nothing to hide, but when those palms vanish into pockets, behind backs, beneath tables, that subconscious message reverses. You're not just looking at body language, you're reading emotional code. The hidden palm becomes a warning. Something's off. Something's being concealed, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, morally. And here's the twist. Most liars don't even know they're doing it. It's instinct. The moment the lie forms in their throat, the body responds before the words escape. The arms fold, the hands retreat, the palms disappear. It's a defense mechanism, disguised as comfort, a subconscious retreat into safety. But to the trained eye, or just a careful observer, it's a blinking red light. This isn't about catching someone nervously scratching their nose or blinking too fast. Those are tells, sure, but they're noisy, exaggerated, and often misunderstood. Hidden palms are different. They're quiet, deceptive, a camouflage of trust cloaking a hidden withdrawal. What's even more disturbing? We're taught to ignore these cues, to focus on words, to listen to tone. But liars aren't always sloppy. Many are skilled, calculated, fluent. It's the body that stutters. It's the flesh that betrays them. Now imagine a high-stakes conversation, a partner promising fidelity, a politician swearing integrity, a stranger asking for trust. Words fill the room, but the hands vanish. Your logical brain wants to believe them. The emotional part, the one tuned by millions of years of evolution, just whispers something's wrong. And yet, most of us don't say anything. We don't point it out. We suppress the gut instinct and file it away as paranoia. We convince ourselves that people hide their hands for innocent reasons. It's cold, it's habit, it's meaningless. But what if it's not? What if every hidden palm is a micro-confession, a buried signal the conscious mind refuses to admit, but the subconscious keeps screaming about? What if the real truth isn't in the words, but in the hands that refuse to be seen? The deception isn't just in the lie, it's in the quiet choreography of the body. And when someone hides their palms, they're not just shielding skin, they're shielding intent, shielding guilt, shielding a reality they hope you won't notice. So the next time someone tells you something important, look down, watch their hands. Are they open, exposed, vulnerable, or have they disappeared like a magician's trick, trying to make doubt vanish? Because the body knows the truth, even when the mouth is rehearsing a lie. And sometimes, the most honest thing a person can show you is the openness of their palm. They don't even realize they're doing it. That's what makes it so revealing. The moment you confront someone with a difficult question, a hole in their story, or an unexpected contradiction, there's a brief, involuntary spike in their face. A flicker of motion so quick it almost escapes detection. Their eyebrows rise, just for a second, but in that second they give themselves away. Eyebrows are the gatekeepers of surprise. When someone is genuinely shocked, their eyebrows shoot upward automatically. It's primal, rooted deep in the biology of human expression. The lifted brows widen the eyes, enhancing vision, preparing the brain to take in more information. It's a survival reflex. But here's the catch. If someone already knows what's coming, if their mind isn't truly surprised, those eyebrows should stay neutral. So when you catch them rising, even slightly at a moment where they shouldn't be surprised, you've just caught the lie. It's the betrayal of the body. Because the brain might craft a perfect sentence, but the body still reacts to reality. The rise of the brows is the body saying, wait. Picture it. You ask a simple question. "Where were you last night?" They reply smoothly, "At home watching a movie." But for a split second, their eyebrows betray a flicker of confusion. That's not the face of someone confident in their answer. That's the face of someone recalibrating, scrambling internally, their mind processing the implications of your question faster than they can mask it. It's a micro-expression. It happens in less than half a second, too fast for them to control, and that's why it's so reliable. The problem is that most people miss it. We're trained to listen to words, not faces. We focus on tone, eye contact, and story. But the truth leaks out in the margins. The body tells on itself. Even more disturbing, a seasoned liar knows how to control most of their body, how to maintain tone, eye contact, even posture. But the eyebrows, they're the final frontier of involuntary exposure. They react before the mind can intervene. And in moments of fear, like when a lie might be discovered, those brows can twitch upward, not from surprise, but from anxiety, disguised as surprise. They've practiced the script, but not the reflex. This is why interrogators watch the eyes, not just the words, why micro-expression experts study frames of video like forensic scientists. Because lies don't just hide in language, they hide in milliseconds. It's even more fascinating when the liar doesn't know they're lying, when they're in denial. The subconscious registers something's wrong before the conscious mind catches up. The eyebrows rise involuntarily in a moment of cognitive dissonance. A part of them knows they're out of sync with reality. Their face reflects the truth before their words attempt to bury it. Eyebrows rising in surprise, especially at moments that shouldn't provoke it, are like emotional alarms. They flash to signal discomfort, dissonance, deception. And if you know what to look for, they're impossible to ignore. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. The tiniest betrayal etched across a forehead, a story written in muscle and instinct. It doesn't matter how clever the lie is. If the eyebrows rise when they shouldn't, the truth is already out. You're in a room with someone you don't trust. Maybe you're asking them a question they don't want to answer. Maybe they're trying to sell you something, or maybe they're simply afraid you'll see through them. You study their face, waiting for a tell, some flicker of truth breaking through the performance, and then it happens. The quick flick of the tongue, a subtle swipe across the lips. It seems meaningless. In fact, it's almost invisible unless you're looking for it. But that one movement might be more revealing than anything they say, because licking the lips isn't just about moisture. It's a biological reflex tied directly to stress and anxiety. When someone lies, their body betrays them before their words do. The act of lying triggers a cascade of physiological stress. Heart rate increases, blood pressure shifts, breathing changes, and one of the first areas hit. Salivation, the mouth dries up. It's part of the fight or flight response, the body preparing for conflict, for escape, for survival. A dry mouth signals danger, and the brain hates that signal. So the tongue instinctively moves to restore moisture, to counter the discomfort, to self-soothe. It's like a tiny involuntary panic button, but there's something even deeper going on. Licking the lips isn't just about physical relief, it's about emotional regulation. Think of it like a child sucking their thumb. It's a comfort gesture, a signal that the internal world is spiraling and the body is scrambling to restore order. In adults, it becomes subtler, disguised, but the instinct remains. You've probably done it yourself before a big presentation, a difficult conversation, a confrontation you didn't want to have. You might not even notice, but your body does. It reaches for rituals that calm the storm, even if only for a second. Now imagine someone is lying. They know the stakes. Their brain is on high alert, scanning your reactions, monitoring their words, trying to keep the story straight. It's exhausting and stressful. And beneath that stress, their body keeps leaking clues. That's why the lip lick matters. Because in that moment, the person is doing two things at once, trying to deceive you while also trying to comfort themselves. The lie might be calculated, rehearsed, even convincing, but the body's response is raw, unfiltered. It reveals the tension between what's said and what's felt. But here's the twist: it's not always conscious. Most liars don't even know they're doing it. That's what makes it so powerful. It's a subconscious tick that sneaks through the cracks in their performance. A momentary lapse in control, a physiological confession. And it doesn't end there. The more someone lies, the more their stress builds. And with each repetition, the body grows more desperate to calm down. That's why chronic liars often display compulsive self-soothing behaviors, rubbing hands, scratching necks, fidgeting, and yes, licking lips. The lie causes stress. The stress causes behavior. The behavior gives the lie away. Of course, not everyone who licks their lips is lying. Some people are just nervous, or dry-mouthed, or tired. But context is everything. Watch the timing. Watch what was just said. Look for clusters of behavior. Lip licking paired with throat clearing, eye darting, shoulder shifting. The more signs stack up, the louder the truth becomes. Because the body always speaks, even when the mouth is lying. And once you start noticing, you can't unsee it. It's like turning on a black light in a dark room. Suddenly, all the hidden stains are visible. Every tick, every twitch, every tiny betrayal of comfort becomes a scream of subconscious confession. The most dangerous liars aren't the ones who fool you, they're the ones who fool themselves. But the body doesn't lie. It just wants peace. And if you know what to look for, even a flick of the tongue can be a spotlight on the truth. She's talking to you with her hands. Only now they've stopped. Frozen mid-air, suspended like a glitch in the program. Her sentence continues, but her gestures have vanished, like someone pulled the plug on her body while her voice kept going. And your brain catches it, even if you can't explain why something's off. It's one of the subtlest cues in deception, and yet one of the most powerful, freezing gestures. It's not just a random pause, it's a micro break in the choreography between thought, emotion, and movement. Because when people speak the truth, their bodies and minds are in sync. Their words flow with their hands, their heads, their tone. But a lie interrupts that flow, and the body hesitates. Imagine you're telling someone a deeply emotional story, one you believe with your whole being. Your hands move naturally, maybe sweeping wide to show size, or tapping rhythmically with the pace of your words. But if you were making it up, you'd need to focus on the construction of the story, not just its delivery. And that added cognitive load. It hijacks your gestures. It clamps down your motor signals. It freezes what should be fluid. This freeze doesn't last long, maybe a second, maybe less. But in that moment, your subconscious sees it. It registers the break in authenticity. The pause where the body seems to lose its place in the script. It's as if the lie momentarily stuns the nervous system, like static in a smooth broadcast. And it's not just the hands. The whole body might suspend. A leg that was bouncing stops. Shoulders lock. A natural lean suddenly stiffens. Even the face joins in. Eyebrows freeze in an unnatural arch. Lips hold a smile a fraction too long. Or the eyes suddenly go blank, waiting for the brain to catch up. Why does this happen? Because lying isn't natural. It's an act. And acting requires control. too much control, in the effort to appear believable. Liars often over-monitor themselves. They suppress natural behavior to avoid slipping up. But the irony, that suppression is what gives them away. Truth lives in spontaneity. Lies need management. And the moment you try to manage your body, especially under pressure, it betrays you. That freeze is the body's micro-flinch, its tiny panic signal. It's the truth trying to push its way through, only to be strangled by performance. You've seen this before, even if you didn't know what to call it. A politician answering a tough question with practiced charm, but their hands stay unnaturally still. A friend telling a story that doesn't quite line up, and for a split second, their entire body pauses, like a buffering video. A child swearing they didn't break the vase while their arms lie frozen at their sides, unsure whether to feign innocence or deflect blame. And it's important to recognize this isn't about catching someone in a lie so you can shame them. It's about understanding the language beneath language, the signals our bodies send before our mouths even speak. Because sometimes people freeze not because they're deceitful, but because they're afraid, because they're hiding pain, because they're unsure of how their truth will be received. That's the twist. Freezing doesn't always mean lying, but it always means tension. Always means something's misaligned. And if you're paying attention, you'll notice it. That moment of stillness in the middle of motion. That quiet flicker that says something here doesn't fit. So next time you're watching someone speak, don't just listen. Watch, look for the dance between voice and movement. Look for the moment when the dance stops, when the music's still playing, but the body suddenly forgets the steps. Because in that moment of frozen motion, the lie often reveals itself, not in the words spoken, but in the silence between them. They talk too much, don't they? The ones who lie. It's almost like they're trying to build a wall of words so thick, so fast, that you can't find the truth behind it. And maybe that's exactly what they're doing, trying to outrun your suspicion before it can catch up. Because when someone is lying, silence becomes dangerous. It's in the quiet where doubt grows, where the story can fall apart. So they talk. They talk and talk. You've seen it. Maybe you didn't know what it was at the time, but you felt it. A strange rush of sentences, like someone afraid of leaving a single second empty. They fill the air with detail after detail, most of them irrelevant, all of them defensive. It's not conversation. It's camouflage, a frantic effort to smother your instincts under layers of narrative. This isn't just about speech. It's about survival. For the liar, every second spent talking is a second spent controlling the story. Every pause is a risk. A silent moment is an invitation for scrutiny, and scrutiny is deadly. So their words trip forward without pause, as if momentum alone could save them, as if speed could make the lie invisible. But here's the truth. Real honesty doesn't fear silence. It doesn't scramble to fill gaps. Honest people take their time. They pause, they reflect, because they're not inventing. They're remembering. They're not building a lie. They're revisiting reality. There's no pressure to protect a fragile fabrication. There's no house of cards to keep upright. Just the steady pace of recollection. A liar, on the other hand, is improvising under pressure. They're sprinting through a minefield, hoping you won't notice the cracks in the pavement. Their voice might sound confident, even charismatic. But listen closer. Does it rush? Does it circle? Does it drown you in specifics that seem a little too specific? That's not confidence. That's desperation. And then there's the rhythm, the unnatural rhythm. Their sentences don't breathe like yours do. They race, they dodge, They blur together in a haze of rehearsed spontaneity. They'll repeat things, over-explain, offer justifications before you even ask, because they're not talking to you. They're talking to the version of you that might catch them. They might even smile more than usual, or less. Their gestures, their tone, their pacing. It's all calibrated to keep you from looking too closely. But it's the constant flow of words that gives them away, because silence would demand sincerity, and sincerity is something they just don't have time for. How do you cut through the flood? You wait, you pause, you let the silence stretch a little longer than comfort allows. Watch what happens when the verbal current runs dry. That's when the truth starts to struggle. That's when their story begins to tremble. Because a liar thrives in noise, but drowns in quiet. And here's the twist. They don't even know they're doing it. Not consciously. It's instinct. A primal response. Like a cornered animal thrashing to survive. Their brain knows the danger, even if their mouth doesn't. Not to persuade, but to protect. But in that torrent of language, there's always a slip. A detail that doesn't fit. A phrase repeated too often. A contradiction they didn't notice. Because when words trip without pause, they eventually trip over themselves. Not to challenge too early. Just listen. Let the wave crash. Let them wear themselves out, trying to bury the truth. And when they finally stop, when they finally look at you, waiting for approval, or panic, or anything, they'll reveal more in that silence than they did in all their frantic words. Because the lie is in the flood, but the truth waits in the quiet. She nods. Not once, not twice, but 3, maybe 4 times in quick succession. Her smile is polite, her eyes attentive. She seems engaged, agreeable, almost eager, but something doesn't sit right. Excessive nodding, it looks harmless, friendly, even flattering. But when you understand what's really happening behind that motion, it becomes something else entirely. A red flag, a psychological flare shot into the air. Because sometimes, when people nod too much, they aren't agreeing, they're stalling. When someone lies, especially on the spot, their brain enters a state of cognitive overload. They're constructing a narrative while gauging your reactions, suppressing guilt, managing fear, and trying to sound convincing, all at once. It's a performance, and every second counts. Every microsecond is spent buying time. Excessive nodding is one of those purchases. You ask a direct question, "Where were you last night?" You expect a clear answer, but instead you get a flurry of nods. It's not affirmation, it's hesitation, masked as enthusiasm. The nodding is the bridge between question and lie, a delay disguised as agreement. And it works because you assume cooperation. You assume they're simply being engaged. Meanwhile, inside their mind, panic spins like a roulette wheel, grabbing for the right combination of words, watching your face for cues, calibrating their tone to match your expectations. They're not just nodding at you, they're nodding at time, at tension, at the terrifying possibility of being found out. This isn't limited to interrogations or dramatic accusations. You see it in everyday interactions, in meetings, relationships, negotiations. A colleague nods aggressively when asked if they finished their part of the project. Your partner nods too much when you mention the name of someone they said they'd forgotten. A teenager nods over and over when you remind them of curfew. It feels like cooperation. But it's often camouflage because lying, even small lying, requires rhythm control. The liar needs to regulate tempo, slow things down enough to think, but not so much that it looks suspicious. Nodding creates a rhythm. It fills the gap. It's like background music, while the mind writes its lines. And here's what makes it even more dangerous. It's contagious. You see someone nodding, and your instinct is to nod back. That's human mimicry, a mirror response. We nod to show understanding. We nod to build rapport. But in these moments, your mimicry is weaponized against you. They nod to delay. You nod back, thinking they're agreeing. Suddenly, you're aligned in a moment of shared falsehood, and you didn't even mean to be. This is the subtle power of body language. It manipulates without words, persuades without facts, and in the hands of a liar, it protects the lie. But not all nodding is deceit. Of course not. Genuine people nod all the time. The difference lies in context and intensity. Watch the eyes. Are they avoiding yours? Watch the timing. Do they nod before answering a tough question? Or while giving a vague response? Watch the consistency. Is their nodding part of their natural cadence, or is it sudden, excessive, out of place? When the nodding feels more like stalling than understanding, that's your signal. That's when you pause and rethink what you're being told. Because excessive nodding doesn't always mean agreement. Sometimes it means someone's stalling for just enough time to turn a lie into a believable story. And if you don't catch it, you'll walk away feeling understood, without realizing you were just politely, rhythmically deceived. You're at a dinner table. A friend is telling a story, a big one, dramatic and just a little too perfect. Their eyes dart for a second, their lips tighten, and then their hand gestures become unusually fluid, smooth, almost choreographed. You nod, smile politely, but something in you feels off. You're not sure why. It's not what they said, it's how they said it, or rather, how they moved. Because here's something you weren't taught in school. Liars don't just speak with their mouths, they speak with their hands. And the most convincing ones, they rehearse the symphony of their fingers just as carefully as the words on their tongues. When someone is telling the truth, their gestures erupt naturally. They don't think about them. The hands flick, wave, jab the air, unfiltered, unscripted. But liars know eyes are watching. They become hyper-aware of the space they occupy. They know chaotic movement draws suspicion, so they overcorrect. Their hands become elegant, precise, controlled. They practice the performance. This is the paradox of deception. In trying to appear more genuine, a liar often becomes unnaturally composed, and smoothness in body language is rarely a sign of calm. It's often a mask for tension, a suppression, like a smile stretched too long, or a laugh that comes half a second too late. Why does this happen? Because lying creates cognitive load. Your brain isn't just constructing a false narrative, it's also suppressing the truth, managing emotional cues, and scanning for judgment. That's a lot to handle. So while the liar is busy focusing on words, posture, and tone, something else has to give. And often, it's the spontaneity of movement. Natural gestures come from the subconscious. They flow from emotion. When you're relaxed and truthful, your gestures match your speech without effort. But when you're lying, your brain goes to war with itself. Truth trying to burst out, lie trying to keep it down. The result? Tension wrapped in grace. A ballet of false comfort. There's a reason interrogators are trained to watch for overly rehearsed behavior. Not wild eyes or nervous tics, but the opposite. A calm, too calm. Movements too measured. When the hands start flowing like water, but the eyes betray a storm, you know something's off. But here's the twist. We want to believe smoothness equals truth. We associate composure with confidence, and confidence with honesty. That's what makes it so dangerous. Liars who've mastered gesture control can pass as charismatic, even trustworthy. They've learned the rules of human perception, and they use them against us. Politicians do this all the time. Watch their speeches. Their palms are open, gestures symmetrical, timing impeccable, but behind the curtain. Scripts, rehearsals, and media coaching. Their smoothness isn't spontaneity, it's strategy. The corporate world isn't far behind. Executives who need to sell bad news cloak it in elegance. We're restructuring, they say, with a soft smile and fluid hands. The words land softly, but underneath the poise, job cuts, budget slashes, casualties of profit. Even in relationships, this dynamic plays out. A partner saying, "Everything's fine," with a calm voice and graceful hands. But something's missing. The rawness, the unfiltered connection. It's like watching a scene performed, not lived. So how do you spot it? Don't just listen. Watch. Pay attention to the disconnect between words and motion. Are the hands moving in harmony with the emotion, or are they smoothing over it? Is there spontaneity, or a careful dance meant to distract? Does the calm seem earned or rehearsed? Because in truth, authenticity is messy. Honest people stumble. Their hands don't always know where to go. They fidget, they flail, they misfire. But that's what truth looks like. Awkward, unfiltered, human. Smooth hands aren't always lying. But when the message is heavy and the movements are featherlight, you have to wonder, is this real or just a well-practiced performance? And here's the most unsettling part. The best liars don't just fool others, they fool themselves. They believe their own stories. Their hands flow freely, not because they feel safe, but because the mask has become their face. So the next time someone speaks with silky confidence and hands that move like poetry, look closer. Listen not just to what they say, but to what their tension is trying to hide. Because beneath the smoothest movements, the truth might be shaking, quietly, desperately, waiting to be seen. He pauses, just for a split second. A blink too long, a breath too short, and then suddenly his eyes widen. It's a perfect display. Calculated, polished, but also just a little too clean. The surprise on his face isn't messy or chaotic. It's staged, and your brain picks up on it, even if you don't know why. Here's the strange part. Genuine surprise is raw. It's immediate, involuntary. When something truly shocks you, your body reacts before your mind catches up. Your eyebrows shoot up, your jaw drops, your breath catches. But most importantly, your upper eyelids pull back in a sudden, uncontrolled motion. It's primal. It's built into your nervous system. But fake surprise, it tries to mimic all that, just one beat late. Think about the last time someone faked excitement about a gift. The timing was off, wasn't it? The eyes widened, but it was delayed. The voice got louder, the face lit up, but it felt hollow, like theatre. Because that's exactly what it was. When people lie, their expressions often become masks, replicas of real emotions stitched together by memory and intention. But here's the trap. Real emotions start from the inside and move outward. Lies start from the outside and hope the inside catches up. So when someone fakes surprise, their face performs what they think surprise should look like. But the eyes, they always give it away. They stretch open just a bit too long. They flick down and back up, as if searching for feedback. Their blink rate shifts. The entire performance is done with you in mind, not the event itself. That this isn't just about surprise, it's about survival. Humans evolved to detect deception. Long before we had words, we had faces. And before faces, we had eyes. Our brains are wired to scan for microsignals, slight inconsistencies between what someone says and what their body reveals. The eyes, being directly connected to the brain through the optic nerve, are notoriously difficult to fake. Now imagine a liar rehearsing a story. They know what to say, how to sound sincere. But when they get to the part where they're supposed to be surprised about the accident, the affair, the missing money, their eyes widen. But not because they're reliving the moment, because they're trying to convince you. That's why their pupils don't dilate. Their blink reflex doesn't delay. Their upper eyelids rise like curtains in a play. And if you watch closely, you'll notice something else. Tension around the mouth. Real surprise softens the face. Fake surprise hardens it. This disconnect is subtle, but it's profound. It's the moment your subconscious screams, "They're lying," before your conscious mind understands why. And once you learn this, you start to see it everywhere. The politician who claims they're shocked by the scandal. The partner who swears they didn't expect the question. The friend who acts stunned that you caught them. Eyes widen, mouths open, but something doesn't sit right, because real surprise has a rhythm, an emotional beat you can't fake. When it's honest, it's almost ugly, jerky, uneven, visceral. But when it's scripted, it's symmetrical, too rehearsed, too precise. And that precision is what betrays them. But here's the unsettling twist. Sometimes, even they don't know they're lying. They've rehearsed the narrative so many times that their body performs on autopilot. Their fake surprise feels real to them, but their nervous system still tells the truth. This is why learning to read people isn't just about spotting liars. It's about understanding the dissonance between the story they tell and the body they inhabit. It's about becoming fluent in the language of instinct, where milliseconds matter more than words. Because a well-timed eye widening can be the difference between a truth that saves and a lie that destroys. And once you know the difference, you never look at faces the same way again. You're in a room. The walls aren't closing in, not exactly, but something feels tight. Your breath is short. Your spine, once relaxed, is now locked into place. You can feel your shoulders tighten, your arms stiffen, your whole posture suddenly too rigid. And here's the thing, you didn't even realize it until now. Something triggered it. Maybe it was a question. Maybe it was a lie. That stiffness isn't random. It's primal, it's survival, because your body doesn't know how to lie as well as your mouth does. Your words can bend, twist, charm, but your posture is honest. Lying is a threat to the body, not because the lie itself is dangerous, but because the stakes surrounding it are social rejection, punishment, exposure. The brain calculates risk instantly. And in that calculation, it tells the body, brace, tense up. Prepare for consequence. You might think of lying as a cognitive act, a choice, a trick of words. But the truth is, it's a full-body event. The moment the lie forms, your nervous system lights up, muscles contract. Especially the postural muscles, the ones that hold you upright, steady, present. You don't slouch when you lie. You lock. You brace. You armor yourself with your own body. And yet, you'll deny it. You'll say you're relaxed. You'll flash a smile, maybe chuckle. But underneath, your body betrays you. The stiffness gives you away. This is why trained interrogators watch posture before they listen to words. Because the body speaks first. It reacts before the mind has time to cover its tracks. A person telling the truth sits loose, fluid, open. A person lying, their limbs get tight. Their back straightens unnaturally. Their movements lose grace and become mechanical, hesitant. It's like watching a marionette, The strings pull tighter when the puppet is trying too hard. But this reaction isn't just psychological, it's evolutionary. Think about it. Deception is risky in any species. When a chimpanzee lies, when it hides food from the others, its posture changes too. Its eyes shift, its body coils. Because even in the animal world, lying can lead to exile or attack. So evolution built in a fail-safe, a tell, something you can't easily control. Now layer on human guilt, shame, social anxiety. Not only are you trying to hide the truth, you're trying to hide the fact that you're hiding it. That's a performance on top of a performance. And the strain shows. As ironically, the more you want to be believed, the stiffer you become. The desire to appear honest tightens you like a rope. You sit straighter, you stop fidgeting, you try to look composed, but instead of looking calm, you look frozen. Because real calm isn't stillness, it's flow. And liars lose flow. This is why the best liars aren't the ones who control their words, they're the ones who can control their bodies. The sociopath, the con artist, the practiced manipulator, they've trained their posture to mimic truth, to stay loose under pressure. But most people can't hide that tension. And here's where it gets darker. Some people notice this stiffness instinctively. They can feel when someone's energy shifts. They might not know why they stop trusting you, but their brain has picked up on the freeze, the lack of fluidity. Something feels off, even if they can't explain it. Your body is trying to protect you, to prepare you for fallout. But in doing so, it exposes you. Now imagine a lifetime of small lies. I'm fine. I'm happy. I love this job. Each one triggering that tiny postural shift, that micro-stiffness. Over time, your body gets used to it. The lie becomes a habit. The posture becomes permanent. And that's the real danger. Not just being caught in a lie, but becoming the lie. Living in a body that is always subtly braced, always slightly armored, always preparing for consequences that never come. So the next time someone's words sound perfect, but their body seems off, pay attention. Watch their posture, not what they say, but how they sit, how they hold themselves. Because the truth might not be in them, may be locked inside their spine. You're in a job interview. You've prepared, dressed the part, rehearsed every answer, but then comes a question you didn't expect. Not hard, just unexpected. And your face, without permission, betrays you. A faint flush creeps up your cheeks, warmth floods your skin, and the person across the table notices. They lean forward slightly, smile just enough to unsettle you. Because in that instant, something silent but powerful was said. Something beyond words. You're not just answering questions, you're revealing something involuntary, something primal. Guilt. Blushing is one of the oldest signals the body knows. You can't control it. You can't suppress it. And that's precisely why it's so revealing. It bypasses your polished persona and exposes what your brain is trying to conceal. But what makes it fascinating is not just that you blush, it's why you blush. And when, contrary to what you might believe, people don't only blush when they're embarrassed. They blush when they're caught, not necessarily in a crime, but in a lie, in a contradiction, in an uncomfortable truth they hoped would stay hidden. It's the body reacting to being seen too clearly, too intimately. Guilt triggers it. Not because you feel bad, but because you feel exposed. And here's where it gets darker. Blushing isn't a sign of innocence. It's a response to vulnerability. You can blush because you've done something wrong or because someone thinks you have. That ambiguity makes it incredibly useful and incredibly dangerous. Interrogators know this. Detectives watch for it. Manipulators exploit it. Because when your cheeks flush, your control falters. And that's when the real questions begin. But this isn't just about the courtroom or the interrogation room. Think about everyday moments. You're telling a story to a friend, exaggerating just a bit. They raise an eyebrow. You feel the heat rise. Or you're confronted with something you'd rather forget. An accusation, a memory, a truth. Your skin responds before your words can defend you. You haven't said, "I'm guilty," but your body already has. Now imagine being trained to see that, to recognize that tiny, involuntary flicker of color as a signal, one that bypasses all rational defenses. Suddenly, body language becomes a roadmap, and blushing, a neon sign blinking. Something's not right. It's the paradox of deception. The more you try to control your appearance, the more your body rebels. Liars rehearse their words, manage their expressions, control their posture. But the blush slips through. It exposes not just what you've done, but what you fear others might discover. It's a confession without a voice. And there's another layer, one most people miss. You can blush even when you're technically innocent, because the fear of being judged, of being misunderstood, can mimic the guilt of actual wrongdoing. That's why the best liars never blush. They don't fear being caught, they believe their own lie. But the honest person, trying desperately to seem credible, might flush uncontrollably. And suddenly, they look suspicious. This is why blushing is such a cruel indicator. It doesn't distinguish between guilt and anxiety, between deception and discomfort. It just reacts. And that makes it both a weapon and a weakness. A tool for uncovering truth or for falsely accusing the anxious, the shy, the overly empathetic. So what does this mean for you? It means that your body is always speaking, even when your mouth stays shut. It means your emotional truth leaks out in pigment and heat. And it means that guilt, whether deserved or not, leaves a mark, not on your record, but on your skin. And here's the most unsettling part: we trust it. Deep down, we all read blushes instinctively. A sudden redness makes us pause, doubt, question. It evokes suspicion or sympathy, but it always draws attention. You can fake a smile, you can fake a laugh, but you can't fake the blood rushing to your face. You can't fake that primal signal screaming, "He's been seen." And in a world where truth is slippery and deception is polished, maybe that's why blushing still matters, because it cuts through the noise. It doesn't just reveal guilt, it reveals humanity. It shows us who's pretending, who's afraid, and who still has something to hide, even if they don't know it yet. You're in a conversation with someone who insists they're telling the truth, but something feels off. Their words are polished, rehearsed, their face composed. But then you repeat their exact sentence, word for word, back to them, and suddenly something breaks. Their eyes flicker, their posture shifts, their voice wavers, if only slightly. That's the power of echoing questions. You take their statement, "I was at the office until midnight," and you throw it back. You were at the office until midnight. No accusation, no challenge, just a mirror. And what happens next is pure psychological pressure, because liars rely on momentum. They script their story in advance, memorize the timeline, rehearse the emotions. But when you echo their words back, you interrupt the flow. You force them to stop and reprocess what they just said. And that pause, that microsecond of hesitation, it's where the truth hides. Deception takes energy. It's a mental juggling act. Facts, lies, tone, body language, all in constant alignment. Echoing forces a liar to re-engage with the lie they thought they'd already buried. And in that moment of re-engagement, the performance starts to crack. Most people assume that catching a lie means spotting guilt or nervousness. But experienced liars don't always act nervous. They act convincing. What you're looking for isn't panic, it's friction. And echoing questions create that friction without ever appearing aggressive. Imagine you're interrogating someone about a missing document. They say, "I never touched it." You reply, "You never touched it." Suddenly, their brain is dragged back to the claim. They have to reaffirm the lie, mentally walk through the scenario again. Did they say never or not recently? Did someone else see them near the document? Could their story unravel? All of that flashes behind their eyes in less than a second. Even if their words stay the same, their delivery won't. Their tone may shift. They might blink faster. Their voice might rise or fall unnaturally. That's the tension leaking through, because echoing disarms the liar's defense system. It doesn't push them away. It pulls them inward into the architecture of their own lie. And liars hate that. They thrive on distance, on telling their story and walking away, hoping you just absorb it and move on. But echoing doesn't let them move on. It traps them in the moment, holds them accountable to their own narrative. Even more powerful is what echoing does to silence. Say they answer quickly, too quickly. Echo the answer, and then stay quiet. Let the silence grow heavy. Let them feel the weight of their own words hanging in the air. The human brain hates silence during conflict, especially when that silence follows a mirrored statement. Liars will often fill that silence with extra details, more lies, and the more they talk, the more cracks appear. This technique works because it exploits a liar's biggest fear, inconsistency. They know their story has a shelf life. Every repeated question is another opportunity to contradict themselves, another trap. And so they begin to unravel, not because you exposed them, but because they exposed themselves under the pressure of their own words bouncing back at them. But here's the twist. Echoing doesn't just reveal lies, it reveals the liar. Because honest people, they don't flinch when you repeat their words. They welcome the chance to clarify, to say it again, louder, clearer, firmer. But liars recoil, they shrink. Not always visibly, but internally. And that shrinking shows up in the subtlest ways, in avoidance, in microexpressions, in hesitation. Echoing questions aren't magic. They're not some hypnotic Jedi mind trick. But they are a scalpel, a tool of psychological precision. And in the right hands, they expose what even polygraphs miss. Not because they uncover truth, but because they uncover fear, and fear always leaves a trace. You're sitting across from someone who just got caught in a lie. They've been cornered by facts, by witnesses, maybe even by their own contradictions, and then it happens. They reach up and scratch their head. It's subtle, almost innocent. But in that moment, a strange dance begins, a ritual of delay, a neurochemical scramble for safety. You might think it's nothing, a random itch. But what if it's not? What if that small, seemingly meaningless gesture is their brain trying to buy time? Not just emotionally, but neurologically. It floods the brain with conflicting priorities. Manage the story, suppress the truth, read the listener's reaction, and above all, stay in control. That pressure creates heat, mental friction. And the brain's instinctive response is to stall, to reach for anything that can give it a moment to recalibrate. That's where the head scratch comes in. It's a classic pacifying behavior, a subconscious signal that says, I need a second, I'm overwhelmed, I'm unsure. It's not planned, it's not calculated, but it's real. And it gets more interesting, because it's not just the head. It could be the neck rub, the temple press, the sudden brush through the hair. All of them are forms of self-soothing, small physical actions designed to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, to cool the storm. But why now? Why not earlier in the conversation? Because the lie has arrived. The story has collided with scrutiny, and the liar, knowingly or not, is trying to stall, to think, to survive. These gestures are stall tactics, dressed up as absent-minded habits. They don't shout guilt, but they whisper it. And the more you listen, the louder those whispers become. Still, we have to be careful. Not every scratch is a confession. Not every fidget is a signal. Context matters. Timing matters. But when these gestures show up precisely when a question lands, when the pressure peaks, that's your cue. That's when the subconscious starts leaking. Because the body doesn't lie as elegantly as the mind does. It fumbles, it reveals, it betrays. And it does so in milliseconds. There's another layer to this. The brain isn't just buying time, it's stalling because it's switching modes. When someone lies, they move from automatic memory retrieval to conscious story construction. It's the difference between pulling a book off a shelf and having to write the next page while someone reads over your shoulder. That mental switch isn't seamless. It needs cover. It needs space. And so the hand reaches up. That tiny head scratch. It's a mask, a pause button, a silent plea for delay, hidden in plain sight. And you're watching it unfold, noticing the micro-delay, the subtle freeze before the answer, the gesture that looks like nothing, but means everything. This is why body language matters. Not as a lie detector, but as a window, a glimpse into the cognitive storm behind the eyes. Because when words are polished and rehearsed, the body remains primitive, instinctive, honest. So the next time you see someone scratch their head under pressure, ask yourself, are they confused or are they calculating? Because in that scratch, that fidget, that unconscious reach, you're not just watching a nervous tick, you're watching time being bought, a lie being born, and a truth struggling to breathe. You're at a table, deep in conversation. Everyone's face is still, hands composed, voices calm, but under the table, someone's foot is tapping, not once, not twice, rhythmic, restless, relentless. You might think it's just a nervous habit, but what if that twitching toe was the loudest lie in the room? Body language doesn't ask for permission, it leaks. And foot tapping is one of its purest, most primal forms of leakage. The feet are far from your conscious control, buried in the bottom hierarchy of movement awareness. While your face might lie with a smile, and your voice may pretend with precision, your feet are still shouting the truth. Why do liars often show their deceit through their feet? Because lying creates internal conflict. The body wants to flee, to escape the cognitive dissonance, but the liar can't run. So the feet simulate the flight, that jitter, that bouncing heel, that rapid tapping against the floor. It's a silent scream of discomfort. You've seen it before. A suspect in a police interview starts tapping uncontrollably when asked about the night of the crime. A partner fidgets under the table when caught in a contradiction. A child tries to fake innocence, but their sneakers give them away. It's not the words. It's never the words. It's the tap, 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 the truth hammering its way out from beneath. Now here's where it gets stranger. The more someone tries to hide the lie with their face, exaggerating calm, forcing eye contact, rehearsing their script, the more likely the tension migrates downward. The lie gets displaced, compressed into smaller, more primitive outlets, feet, fingers, knees. But the feet are the most honest of all. They aren't trained in performance. They don't know how to deceive. Some researchers call it leakage behavior. Others refer to it as motor overflow. But the principle is clear. When the mind is in conflict, the body compensates. And that compensation reveals far more than we'd like to admit. Think about what the foot tap really is. It's not just movement. It's a metronome of anxiety, a countdown to collapse, a stuttering rhythm of suppressed truth. And once you notice it, really notice it, you can't unsee it. The overly calm liar. Look down, feet tapping, like Morse code. The confident politician dodging a question, one leg shaking beneath the podium. The cheating lover, smiling too wide. Watch their shoes, restless, uneasy, begging to run, even more unnerving. Most people don't know they're doing it. They're so focused on keeping their story straight, they forget their body is already confessing. It's like watching someone try to hold a beach ball underwater. The effort is all-consuming, but eventually something slips. And here's the twist that matters. Not every foot tap is a lie. Sometimes it's stress, caffeine, anticipation. But in the context of deception, especially when questions get uncomfortable, that jitter becomes something else. It becomes a signal, a flare, a tell. So how do you use this? Start watching. Not the words, not the eyes, but the body below the table. Look for the contradiction between what's said and what's expressed. If someone says, "I'm totally fine," but their heel is bouncing like a jackhammer, believe the foot. Remember, liars are actors, but the feet, they're unscripted. When you start noticing the rhythm of unrest, you begin to decode a different kind of language, one that bypasses performance, one that reveals the truth behind the mask, and the most disturbing realization. Sometimes, the person with the tapping foot is you. Because lying isn't always malicious. Sometimes, it's survival. Sometimes, you lie to protect someone. Sometimes, you lie to protect yourself. But no matter how noble the reason, your body doesn't care. It knows the truth. And your feet, they're already confessing. So the next time you sit across from someone and their feet start tapping, don't just hear their words, listen to their panic. Listen to their guilt. Listen to the rhythm of a truth that's dying to be heard. You're in a conversation. Your heart is racing. Your palms are damp. And suddenly your voice trembles, just slightly. A quiver, barely noticeable. But it's there, and whether you realize it or not, everyone else hears it too. A shaky voice is one of those primal signals our bodies send when we're under psychological strain. It betrays the internal chaos we're trying so hard to conceal. And in moments of deception, when we're lying, withholding, or pretending, that tremor becomes louder than the words we speak. Why does the voice shake? It's not random. It's rooted in a biological stress response. When you lie, your body registers a threat, not from the outside, but from within. Lying requires mental load, memory juggling, and emotional suppression. You're not just speaking, you're constructing a false reality in real time, hoping it doesn't collapse. And your body knows it. The fight or flight system kicks in. Your muscles tighten, your breathing shifts, and your larynx, the delicate structure that controls pitch and tone, tenses under pressure. The result? Your voice cracks, quivers, or fluctuates unpredictably. It's your physiology whispering the truth your mind is trying to hide. But there's something even more unsettling. Most people don't notice their voice trembling until it's too late. You might think you're calm, collected, but the audience, especially those attuned to subtle cues, picks up on it instantly. Because a shaky voice doesn't just sound nervous, it sounds guilty. It sounds false. It sounds afraid. That fear isn't always fear of getting caught. Sometimes it's the fear of being exposed, not just as a liar, but as someone who has something to hide. There's a deeper psychological layer here. You're not just lying to another person. You're lying to their eyes, their ears, their instincts. And deep down, you suspect they can feel it. This is why voice modulation is so critical in interrogation rooms and high-stakes interviews. Trained observers aren't just listening to what's said, they're listening for inconsistency, tension, fragility. A strong statement delivered with a weak, quivering tone sends conflicting signals, and in human communication, contradiction equals suspicion. Now here's where it gets even more twisted. Not every shaky voice signals deceit. Sometimes it signals trauma. Sometimes it signals anxiety. The body doesn't distinguish between I'm lying and I'm terrified. It just reacts. This makes interpretation dangerous because innocent people can sound guilty, and skilled deceivers can train themselves into calm. But therein lies the paradox. Most effective liars overcompensate. They try so hard to sound confident that they slip into rigidity. They lose the natural rhythm of speech. Their voice doesn't shake, but it becomes unnaturally steady, robotic, overly rehearsed. And ironically, that too becomes a tell. So we listen. We listen to the tremor, the pace, the pitch, the pauses. Because deception doesn't hide in what people say. It hides in how they say it. A shaky voice is your subconscious screaming through clenched teeth. Its vulnerability leaking out through tension. And the reason it's so revealing, because it's hard to fake. You can control your words. You can plan your story. But you can't easily override your nervous system. You can't lie without consequence. Your voice, your raw, involuntary voice, keeps the score. So next time you hear someone speak with a trembling tone, pay attention. Not with judgment, but with curiosity. What are they trying to say, and what are they trying not to? Because sometimes the most honest thing a person says is the part their voice couldn't hold steady. You're at a party, loud music, laughter, a crowd thick with movement. You're in mid-conversation, and suddenly you ask a simple, innocent question, one that shouldn't be hard to answer. But the person across from you falters. Just for a second, their eyes don't meet yours. Instead, they dart to the side. A quick glance, barely perceptible, left and downward. Then they smile and answer. But something feels off, doesn't it? That glance, that swift detour of the eyes, is where the lie hides. Most people believe liars fidget, that they can't sit still, or that they'll start sweating. But the truth is much more subtle and far more disturbing. Deception lives in micro-movements, especially in the eyes, because eyes don't just reveal emotion, they betray intent. And when someone is lying, the eyes become restless. Swift glances serve one purpose: escape. A liar's gaze avoids commitment, not just to the person in front of them, but to the reality they're trying to fabricate. Eye contact is confrontation. It means vulnerability, exposure, but a liar can't afford that. So their eyes retreat, not always dramatically, sometimes just a flicker, but that flicker says everything. It's a survival instinct. When someone lies, they experience cognitive dissonance, the brain's resistance to saying something it knows isn't true. That conflict creates stress, and stress demands an outlet. For some, it's verbal stumbles, but for many, it's the eyes. Look closely next time. A truthful person's gaze tends to be steady, not perfect. Nobody stares unblinking like a robot, but consistent. Their eyes meet yours, they follow the rhythm of the conversation. But liars, they scan. They jump from your face to the floor, to the ceiling, to the side. They're looking for escape routes, for safe zones where their guilt won't echo so loudly. And there's something even more unsettling. The direction of those glances can reveal even more. A downward glance suggests shame. A glance to the left, if they're right-handed, might mean fabrication. They're accessing imagination, not memory. It's subtle, but telling. They're building, not recalling. And that difference is the gap between honesty and deception. But this gets worse, the deeper you go. Because liars adapt. They learn not to look away too much. So their glances become even shorter, more controlled. Just milliseconds. They train themselves to make eye contact, but it's hollow. It's calculated. You'll feel it if you're paying attention. The gaze is there, but it's dead. It lacks warmth, presence. It doesn't land. It skims the surface of your attention and slips away. And this isn't just about catching others. It's also about you. Think about the last time you lied, really lied. Do you remember where your eyes went? Probably not, because you didn't even notice. But your brain did. Your body did. It knew the truth was dangerous, so it sent your gaze searching for shelter. Maybe it glanced at the door, or your phone, or nothing in particular. Just anywhere but them. That's the tragedy of the swift glance. It's not just an escape from confrontation. It's an escape from accountability. But what happens when everyone's glancing? When lies become normalized, and the truth becomes a burden? We start to mirror each other's discomfort. Eye contact becomes rare. Conversations grow shallow. We stop truly seeing one another, not out of malice, but out of habit. Swift glances become the rhythm of our interactions. Quick, evasive, transactional. We protect ourselves from truth, from pain, from intimacy. We keep things safe. But in doing so, we also keep them fake. So the next time someone's eyes flick away at just the wrong moment, don't ignore it. Don't brush it off. You've seen something real, something honest in their dishonesty. And that knowledge, that glimpse into their hidden world, that's power. Because the eyes never lie, not even when we want them to. He speaks too softly. You've heard that before, haven't you? Said it yourself. Maybe. Noticing someone who barely raises their voice, who seems afraid of being too loud, too present, too real, and something inside you tightens, even if you don't know why. We're trained to equate volume with certainty, confidence with projection, leadership with resonance. So when someone lowers their voice, especially when the stakes are high, when the truth matters, it doesn't calm us. It alarms us. A quiet voice breeds suspicion, because silence as we know it isn't just the absence of sound, it's the presence of something hidden, something unspoken, something protected. When a person speaks too softly, it triggers something primal. You start asking questions. What are they hiding? Why don't they want to be heard? Are they unsure? Or are they lying? Your brain scans for inconsistencies, a mismatch between what they say and how they say it. If someone insists they're innocent, but their voice barely rises above a whisper, your instincts don't register vulnerability, they register danger. Now, of course, the world isn't that simple. Some people are quiet because they're nervous, or because they've been punished for speaking up. But your brain doesn't weigh the nuance, it just calculates the risk. And when it senses fear in someone's voice, it assumes they're afraid of exposure. It assumes guilt. This is how we start to confuse humility with deceit. How we mistake restraint for manipulation. Because in high-stakes moments, interrogations, negotiations, confessions, we don't want gentleness. We want force, we want volume, we want the truth to come crashing through the room, undeniable and bold. But a liar knows this, and that's where it gets complicated. Because the most effective liars aren't the ones who rant and rave, They're the ones who whisper, the ones who know that speaking softly draws you in, forces you to lean closer, makes you feel like you're hearing something sacred, something confidential. A quiet voice becomes a weapon, not of volume, but of intimacy. And once you lean in, you stop thinking critically. You start feeling. You mirror their softness, match their emotional tone. And in that synchronization, your guard lowers. You become complicit in their quiet. This is why some lies never get caught, because they're told gently, carefully, with just enough vulnerability to pass as truth. A trembling lip, a lowered gaze, a whisper of remorse. And suddenly, it doesn't matter what the facts say. It matters how the lie feels. The truth doesn't always scream, but the lie that whispers can be far more dangerous. Now flip it. Imagine you're the one telling the truth. You're tired. You've been accused, misunderstood, gaslighted. And when it's finally your turn to speak, you don't shout. You don't defend. You just explain, calmly, softly. And you watch, helpless, as your quiet truth is mistaken for guilt. Because the room wanted certainty, and all you offered was sincerity. This is the cruelty of perception, that people don't judge you based on what's real. They judge based on what feels real. And we've been conditioned to feel that confidence equals truth. So if your voice shakes, even if it's the truth, it starts to look like a lie. That's how justice slips through cracks. That's how manipulators win. But there's something else here too. Something even more unnerving. What if the reason we fear the quiet voice is because it reminds us of our own? The part of us that stays silent when we should speak up. The guilt we whisper to ourselves at night. The secrets we've buried so deep that even our conscience can barely hear them anymore. When we hear someone speak too softly, we hear our own cowardice echoed back. And we don't like that. So we project. We turn their silence into suspicion, their gentleness into guilt. Because it's easier than facing our own quiet betrayals. So yes, a quiet voice breeds suspicion. But not always because the speaker is lying. Sometimes it's because we are. Your eyes pick up on it, but your brain barely registers it. A twitch in the corner of a mouth. A flash of surprise that vanishes before you can name it. These are microexpressions, tiny involuntary facial movements that reveal what someone's really feeling, even when they're trying to hide it. They flicker across the face in less than half a second, so fast, so subtle, most people miss them entirely. But your subconscious doesn't. You've been reading them your whole life without realizing it. You walk into a room and instantly sense tension. You hear someone say they're fine, but something feels off, that strange gut feeling. It's often your brain detecting a mismatch between what's being said and what's being felt. And microexpressions are the glitch in the matrix, truth leaking out through the cracks of controlled performance. Now imagine this, you're having a conversation with someone who's lying to you. Their words are smooth, their tone is steady. But in that split second before they answer your question, their eyes widen just slightly. Their lip curls, a flash of contempt. Then, like a mask snapping into place, they return to calm. If you blinked, you missed it. But something inside you didn't. Something twitched in your gut. Because microexpressions are biological truth-tellers. They bypass our social filters, our practiced performances. They originate in the limbic system, the emotional core of the brain, and reach the face before the thinking mind can catch up. That's why even seasoned liars, sociopaths, and manipulators can't fully control them. They can fake a smile, but not for long. The real emotion always bleeds through. It's written in the furrow of the brow, the tension in the jaw, the narrowing of the eyes. But here's the catch. Most people are blind to them, not because they're invisible, but because we're trained not to look. We're taught to focus on words, not expressions. We listen to what's being said, not what's being shown. And even when we do notice something strange, we often brush it off. We rationalize the inconsistency. We want to believe people are being honest. We crave the comfort of surface harmony. This is exactly why microexpressions are so dangerous. Not because they lie, but because they tell the truth when we don't want to hear it. They expose the moment of hesitation, the flicker of doubt, the suppressed anger. They reveal the emotional undercurrent beneath the polished narrative. And once you start noticing them, it becomes impossible to unsee. You start realizing just how much of human communication is unspoken, how many people lie, not just to you, but to themselves. Think about politicians, salespeople, influencers, people whose success depends on crafting a convincing persona. Watch their faces as they're questioned. Look past the rehearsed lines. Focus on the micro moments, the gulp, the blink rate, the clenched smile. You'll start to see the internal conflict, the emotional leakage. A perfect performance is nearly impossible because the face keeps betraying the story. And then there's the deeper, darker layer. When you lie to yourself, your face still knows. You say you're happy in your relationship, but the corners of your mouth dip when no one's looking. You claim you love your job, but your eyes harden when you describe your boss. Your own microexpressions are sending messages even you aren't consciously aware of. Your body knows the truth. Your face whispers it in flashes. Microexpressions don't just expose others, they expose you. They're the unconscious confessions you make to the mirror. The tiny giveaways that your mind tries to suppress, but your body refuses to hide. And the more you become aware of them, the more you realize how much of your reality is built on subtle lies, spoken and unspoken. So why don't we all train ourselves to spot them? Because it's unsettling. Once you start seeing microexpressions, you start seeing cracks in everything: friendships, partnerships, institutions. You learn that people often say what they think you want to hear, not what they actually feel. That truth and performance are in constant battle. That the face, for all its muscles and mobility, can't keep the truth in forever. But the real danger isn't that microexpressions exist. It's that they vanish so quickly. If you're not paying attention, they're gone, and you're left with only the mask. So the question becomes, are you willing to look, to see what's really there, not what you wish was there? Are you ready to stop being comforted by words and start being haunted by flickers of truth? Because those half-second flashes, they might just be the only honest thing anyone ever shows you. You see someone talking, they're confident, expressive, persuasive even. But then, it happens. A tiny, almost imperceptible bite of their lower lip, just a twitch. Just for a second. But in that brief moment, something slips through, something they didn't mean to show you. Lip biting isn't just a nervous habit. It's a leak in the dam of deception. When someone lies, their words can be rehearsed, their stories well crafted, but their body betrays them. Because lying doesn't just involve fabricating a story. It involves managing stress, suppressing guilt, and maintaining control. And that pressure, it leaks out through the body, most often through the mouth. Why the mouth? Because it's the source of the lie. The words come from there, and so does the anxiety. When someone lies, even if they're practiced, a war breaks out between what they're saying and what they're feeling. That internal tension often manifests as a bite, a chew, a clamp of the lips. It's a subconscious attempt to hold something back, to literally bite down on the truth, trying to escape. This isn't about reading minds or becoming some human lie detector. It's about understanding the language the body speaks when the mouth is lying. Lip biting often accompanies hesitation, pauses, revisions. The person is trying to keep the story straight while simultaneously wrestling with guilt or fear of being caught. Their words say one thing, their mouth says another. Think of a child caught in a lie. You ask if they broke the vase. They say no, but their teeth graze their bottom lip. They look away. They bite again. They're not just afraid, they're trying to suppress a confession. That same signal appears in adults, dressed in subtler clothes. A politician denying a scandal, a friend explaining why they didn't text back, a spouse deflecting a question just a little too quickly, and there it is, that bite, that flicker, that hesitation. But here's the uncomfortable twist. Lip biting isn't always a lie. Sometimes it's shame. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's a deep internal conflict playing out in the most visible way. That's what makes it so fascinating and so dangerous to ignore. Because while it's not absolute proof of deception, it is proof of discomfort. Emotional incongruence. A fracture between words and reality. What makes it even more compelling is how involuntary it is. You can control your tone. You can memorize a script. But lip biting, it slips through. It's a primal gesture, rooted in self-soothing. In childhood, we bite our lips to calm down, to prevent ourselves from crying, to stop ourselves from speaking. That doesn't go away. Adults do it too, especially when their mind knows it's dancing too close to danger. And here's the real kicker. The more subtle the bite, the more likely it's meaningful. Exaggerated gestures can be performative. But a slight graze of the tooth, that's instinct, that's reflex, that's the subconscious screaming through the cracks. Now ask yourself this, how often have you seen someone do it and ignored it? How often have you heard the words and trusted them, while the body quietly waved a red flag? How many truths have slipped by because you didn't know how to listen? Lip biting is a whisper in a hurricane of noise. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, but it's there, quiet, persistent, honest. And once you learn to see it, you can't unsee it. Every conversation becomes layered. Every denial, every excuse, every carefully chosen word is accompanied by a second voice, the voice of the body trying to tell you something different. So the next time someone speaks and their lip twitches under their teeth, pause, look closer. Because while words can lie, the body always tells the truth.